But the next moment, Duan Yun's expression changed. Because when the gentle knife fell into that ravine, it seemed to sink into a swamp, and when he tried to pull it out forcefully, he couldn't extract it completely. The Valkyrie's ravine seemed to have a force of 10,000 tons, clamping his knife. How could it clamp so tightly? The smile at the corner of the Valkyrie's mouth fell into Duan Yun's eyes in an instant. Duan Yun suddenly felt a strong sense of crisis. All along, the Valkyrie had relied on enigmatic movement techniques and array swordplay, disliking direct confrontation in the sword field with Duan Yun, giving him the illusion that her body was weak, inferior to his own. Unfortunately, that was not the case. The Valkyrie's body itself was incredibly strong, or rather, her body was a weapon in itself. This terrifying clamping force originated from her own body. With a ripping sound, Duan Yun finally pulled the knife out, bringing with it a line of blood, and at this moment, the Valkyrie moved. Duan Yun hastily returned the move, shifting from attack to defense, but sadly, he was still half a beat too slow. The Valkyrie punched out, landing solidly on his lower abdomen. The breaking body sword energy and protective true chi both spilled out, trying to block this punch. But this punch, seemingly ordinary, was like a destructive force, shattering Duan Yun's sword chi and true chi and crashing onto his abdomen. With a booming sound, Duan Yun's body heavily crushed the walls of the pit and sank into the crushed pit. Even though the breaking body sword energy and protective true chi had offloaded most of the fist power, Duan Yun's internal organs churned, and he suffered internal injuries. The Valkyrie covered her chest, starting to stop the bleeding. Duan Yun then used the spring thunder power to heal himself. For a moment, both sides were injured. The injuries were not light. It was clear that because of the thunder fire heavy sword and a stab solidly into her chest, the Valkyrie's injuries were more severe without the efficient healing methods that Duan Yun had. But it also wasn't easy for Duan Yun. His injuries weren't as severe as the Valkyrie's, but his energy consumption was much greater than hers. Using spring thunder power to heal was not very efficient now. Duan Yun tricked the Valkyrie once, causing her to suffer from the thunder fire heavy sword. But the Valkyrie also used her body as bait to deceive Duan Yun once. Thus, both party states were once again even. While both sides were somewhat immobile, Duan Yun again shot a series of flirtatious finger strengths towards the golden tree. But at this moment, red threads drifted and several corpses were lifted, standing beside the Valkyrie. And at this moment, the Valkyrie endured the tremor of flirtation and stood up. She relied on the array to resist the tremor caused by Duan Yun's tactics. If she previously bore the entire tremor alone, now she had called upon several corpses to face it together, thus reducing the impact of Duan Yun's flirtatious finger strength. Damn it, is this what they call the home field advantage? Almost simultaneously, several brilliant fireworks bloomed in the sky. The first firework formed a pipe shape in the sky, with a wisp of green and purple following behind. Is that the distress signal released from Red Tower Mountain being attacked? Red Tower Mountain being attacked wasn't something Duan Yun should concern himself with. But the last wisp of green-purple wasn't something he could ignore. It was Ziyu's signal. Obviously, she was also encountering a situation. Duan Yun gritted his teeth, flipped himself over, and fled out of the pit. Yes, this woman was relying on the tree and the corpses, difficult to kill for a long time. He suffered the disadvantage of fighting on away ground. You can move corpses. Well, I can also move a group of heroes. He had decided to return and bring back the Jade Pearl heroes. At that time, when the group of heroes gathered, we'll see how powerful this young hero is. Duan Yun used the spring thunder to heal as he flew rapidly in the direction of the fireworks. On the other hand, the Valkyrie walked out of the pit. She returned to the pit under the tree, where there was still a leak. But she didn't care at all, directly lying into the shrine and closing her eyes. At the same time, the leaves of the golden tree shimmered, making her, in this golden shadow, extremely mysterious. And the most severe wounds on her body also stopped bleeding and began to heal faster. Duan Yun looked at those warning fireworks, knowing that a change was definitely happening in Taoyuan village, so he sped up. A clear trace had formed on the wild grass That was Duan Yun rapidly shuttling through. The two wild trees trembled, with a blurred afterimage passing through. That was Duan Yun rapidly bounding. The terrain here was complex, yet it couldn't impede Duan Yun's steps. Before the fireworks in the sky dissipated, Duan Yun had returned to the village. The air was filled with a bloody scent. Duan Yun darted straight to the place he had left before. On the ground, there were clear blood trails and the corpses of several Red Tower Mountain disciples. Duan Yun traced the blood trail, then heard sounds of intense battle and screams. He quickly leaped onto the wall, only to see in a courtyard, the Red Tower Mountain disciples were defending desperately. They wielded pipes, exhaling like arrows, and the pipes in their hands also struck swiftly. In the center, Elder Hong Mingtian suddenly unleashed the Red Tower Dharma form, striking rapidly. And their opponents were the villagers of Taoyuan village. These villagers had already turned into corpses in the night, but now they woke up like mad, attacking the living like a scene straight out of a biological crisis. Duan Yun quickly locked onto a sword light as mirror-like. Moon-shielding light-shaming sword. Ziyu. He instantly maneuvered, black sword chi emanating from his body, charging in that direction. Slash, slash, slash. The mirror-like sword chi reflected the shadow of black sword chi. As the two merged into one sweep, the surrounding villagers were already severed. Duan Yun and Ziyu continued the dual swordsmanship, saying, "What happened?" Suddenly, a flute sound echoed in the village, and all these villagers came to life, biting people crazily. The Red Tower Mountain disciples bitten by them also went mad, biting others in turn. Listening to Ziyu's explanation, Duan Yun couldn't help but think, "Damn, it really spreads. Let's kill them all first." Saying that, the two sword lights swirled, attacking in the direction of the besieged Red Tower Mountain disciples. "You're so annoying, joining forces with me like this. Feng Linger will get jealous." Ziyu suddenly spoke up. Duan Yun couldn't help but retort, "Green Jade, can you be a bit more serious? If you can't, let your sister do it. You're joining forces with me, yet you're thinking about my sister, so shameless. Get the hell out of here." The two were bickering like a flirting couple and had together reached the position of the Red Tower Mountain people. With their help, these villagers, unafraid of death, were relentlessly defeated. But still, new villagers came at them fearlessly, saying their zombies wouldn't be accurate because their expressions were very vivid, as if trapped in a confusing dream. Duan Yun suddenly remembered something, and several heroic fire lotuses bloomed, casting golden light. "I am the sun." The villagers in front, bathed in the intense light produced by this heroic fire, showed a dazed expression, no longer advancing. These people were obviously being controlled, but Duan Yun knew that this still couldn't save them. He had used too much today. The heroic fire lotus couldn't be arbitrarily used. Later on, it might only end in killing. Then, just at this moment, the sound of a rooster crowing rang out loudly. The dark horizon suddenly showed a tinge of white. Unknowingly, dawn was breaking, and the villagers suddenly all walked away, with a couple directly passing them, lying down in a nearby destroyed house. No matter how you say it, there's still half a bed left in the house. They hugged each other, caressing one another, displaying the look of a loving couple. Several Red Tower Mountain disciples were wide-eyed. Though they almost died, there's some romance in this scene. They may be a righteous army, unlikely to join such an event, but watching isn't illegal, right? No harm in looking. Then the man suddenly woke up and said, "Oh, Shaolin, stop touching. We have to farm in the day." Suddenly, he let out a strange yell, owing to finding that the wall of the house had one less side, and besides the broken tables and chairs inside, outside that collapsed wall, there were more people watching them. "What's going on? What happened?" shouted the village man. At this time, the woman also woke up and said, "Ah, so it's the guests. Brother Kuan. They like watching. Let's put on a show for them." Seeing the woman's kind behavior, Duan Yun confirmed that as daylight broke, these people also woke up, returning to normal. As the rooster crowed at dawn, the villagers, who originally seemed like zombies wanting to bite people, returned to their kind selves, with some even enthusiastically offering to perform a spring play for their peeping guests. This showed their level of hospitality. It seemed they had experienced a long dream, waking up at the break of day. But soon, the villagers noticed something strange. They saw the corpses. The corpses of villagers killed by Red Tower Mountain and Duan Yun's group still lay there. However, Duan Yun and his group were surprised to find that even so, these villagers quietly collected and buried the bodies, continuing to treat them with hospitality, as if they hadn't seen the incident at all. This situation appeared rather bizarre, even horrifying. After all, among the dead were either close relatives or friends of these people, yet they didn't even ask for compensation. Even the extremely kind-hearted young hero Duan found it hard to believe people could be this good-natured. Surely they were pretending. They were disguising their emotions because they feared the wrath of righteous heroes who might slaughter their entire families or villages. Thus, Duan Yun randomly grabbed two newly widowed women, shivered at their touch, but discovered they were not pretending. When Duan Yun connected with their minds, he found their memories genuinely filled with kindness and hospitality, unchanged despite their husbands' deaths. The situation grew much more complicated at this point. After all, the villagers seemed to be under control. According to Ziyu, they suddenly heard the sound of a flute, and those corpses woke up and started biting people madly. Those bitten also went mad. Fearing the potential demise of the righteous army of Red Tower Mountain at the time, and facing her own troubles, she released the agreed-upon fireworks signal with Duan Yun. Duan Yun pondered for a while before giving a direct order. Bring out the village chief's son. He had roughly guessed that the village chief's son was behind this. In this village, at least the village chief's family could be confirmed as villains closely linked with the Valkyrie and the Golden Tree. He wanted to find the village chief's second son, not for a family reunion, but to uncover more secrets. Of course, annihilating their entire family was also an essential part. Upon hearing Duan Yun's order, Elder Ming Hongtian dared not disobey and quickly organized people to search, despite more than half of their crew being dead or wounded. Unexpectedly, finding people was easier than imagined. The hospitable villagers even offered to help, claiming they knew the area well. With help from local guides, they quickly discovered clues about the sole survivor of the village chief's family. It was a subterranean wine cellar, housing hundreds of jars of old wine. According to an enthusiastic resident, the village chief's second son was very likely hiding in the wine cellar. Elder Hong Mingtian and Master Wang Dihua, eager to impress Duan Yun, personally led the team to capture him. They knew well that in this eerie village, their fates were closely tied to old demon Duan. Not only did they hope for old demon Duan's mercy, but they also sought his protection to survive and hoped to uncover the secrets of the martial god's secret cave. In just one night, what once seemed an idyllic Taoyuan village turned perilously treacherous, costing the lives of many disciples. The wine cellar wasn't large, with limited hiding spaces. Elder Ming Hongtian led a few rounds through it but found no trace. At that moment, a disciple suddenly placed his ear against a wine jar, listening intently. Ming Hongtian asked in confusion, "What are you listening for?" "Elder, since childhood, I've tasted countless wines. Just hearing through the jar tells me the kind. But this jar is odd." "What's odd? It doesn't sound like wine." "Then what is it?" "I can't tell." "Step aside." Ming Hongtian eyed the jar, walking over to it. He picked up the jar, hefting it, then swiftly uncovered it. Ming Hongtian shivered, nearly flinging the jar away. As a ruthless elder of Red Tower Mountain, Ming Hongtian was skilled and powerful. Apart from facing old demon Duan, whom he knew he couldn't defeat, he rarely felt fear. Yet at this moment, he was terrified because the dull red jar contained eyes coldly staring at him. The next instant, a hand swiftly reached out, aiming for his eyes. The attack was sudden and ferocious, giving him no time to react. Caught off guard, Ming Hongtian's response was a fraction too slow. With a crunch, his right eye was gouged out, blood splattering. A nearby Red Tower Mountain disciple, watching a hand emerge from the jar and gouge their elder's eye, screamed in horror, "A ghost!" As his right eye was gouged, searing pain jolted Ming Hongtian to his senses. His right hand flashed out like lightning, grasping the attacker's wrist and twisting it. With a crack, he broke the wrist, unleashing a chilling scream from inside the jar. The jar shattered, revealing a dwarfish figure. Even with one eye, Ming Hongtian recognized the figure as the second son of the village chief. If the chief's elder son hadn't mastered much of his father's skills, the second son had inherited them deeply. His bone-shrinking skills were nearly perfect, allowing him to hide in the jar. The second son, in agony, mustered all his strength to gouge out elder Ming Hongtian's eye. Hong Mingtian also summoned a fierce resolve, biting into his own eyeball with sudden force, breaking his second son's arms and legs. Thus, what appeared before Duan Yun was Hong Mingtian, holding his second son and now with only one eye. At first glance, Duan Yun thought it was Xia Hodun reborn, unable to suppress a sigh of admiration. Whose subordinate is this, so brave? At this moment, Duan Yun finally saw clearly that it was Hong Mingtian. Even with one eye missing, Hong Mingtian instantly changed his expression to that of a good son and said, "Young hero, this troublesome son has been brought to you." Duan Yun couldn't help but ask, "What happened to your eye?" Hong Mingtian quickly sought credit, recounting the experience of losing his eye to capture the village chief's second son. Duan Yun marveled, "Did you really chew your eyeball?" Hong Mingtian hurriedly nodded. Duan Yun said, "What a pity." "Ah." Hong Mingtian was a bit confused, thinking to himself, "Isn't this brave enough?" Duan Yun explained, "If you hadn't chewed it, I might have been able to save it." Hong Mingtian was shocked. "It could still be saved?" Duan Yun said, "Once you've chewed it, there's no saving it." A look of pain crossed Hong Mingtian's face, for he knew Duan Yun was not lying. That night at the Night of Azure Dragon in the graveyard, Red Tower Mountain also participated. Old Demon Duan did not personally join the battle, but stirred up a commotion afterward. The commotion was about healing. Old Demon Duan treated many people that day. This was Old Demon Duan's twisted sense of fun, yet it also showed his remarkable medical skills. Despite the chaotic reattachments, no one died, and it said one Jianghu guest with reversed buttocks later ran faster than before, even mastering a unique, but skill, greatly increasing his power. It was also known that when Old Demon Duan debuted, he was merely a gynecologist. Thinking about how his eye could have been saved but wasn't, Hong Mingtian felt deeply troubled. Yet troubled as he was, even with one eye, he couldn't stop watching the show, for at this time, Duan Yun had already made a move against the second son. Duan Yun held the second son's head and said, "What's with the golden tree and Valkyrie? Why do those corpses look so alike?" The second son steadfastly replied, "I swear loyalty to the Valkyrie unto death." Duan Yun wasted no time, tightening his right hand and generating a terrifying suction force. "If you won't speak, then I'll ask myself." The village chief's only hope, having had his arms and legs broken, was also in a state of bone-shrinking skills, looking extremely short, and under Duan Yun's strong suction, his form changed once more. In the eyes of Hong Mingtian and others, he was sucked into a ball. "I want to be a great hero." Suddenly, the second son shouted. Hearing this voice, everyone present felt inexplicably terrified. It wasn't the first time they'd heard this voice, just like Wang Dihua and others had shouted before. Yet when the voice emerged, it still gave a chilling feeling. "Swear loyalty to young hero Duan unto death." The second son, who had just pledged undying loyalty to the Valkyrie, suddenly had a face full of heroic spirit. Hearing this, Hong Mingtian and the others couldn't hold it back. Your slavish surname changed sides too quickly. After that, the second son, now loyal to young hero Duan, began answering Duan Yun's questions. This son didn't know much in depth, but Duan Yun still gained many details from it. Indeed, the village chief's family had ties to the Valkyrie, or rather, the whole village was connected to the martial god. They were hereditary vassals of the martial god, and because of consuming golden leaves, They could be controlled through golden leaves, thereby guarding the secrets of the martial god. The reason golden leaves could control the villagers, making them live and die at the whim of the flute sound, was because it was inherently a living thing. As for why the Valkyrie-controlled corpses had similar appearances, it was because they were actually blood relatives. According to what the second son understood, the mountain martial god had always been a family. Whether it was the first-generation martial god who first appeared in Jianghu or the later notorious Valkyrie, they were all family. The golden tree is a very magical tree, its leaves are living beings, and the tree itself is alive too. The first-generation martial god originally came from a martial arts family in Yu State, later finding the golden tree, and by comprehending within it, he eventually evolved his martial arts to an unbelievable level. In the words of the vassal second son, the first-generation martial god is actually still alive, merely becoming a part of the golden tree, or rather, an organ of the golden tree. The Valkyrie was one of the strongest offspring born from a female boxer mating with the golden tree. Only those martial gods strong enough, reaching the level where they could leave the golden tree, had the opportunity to venture into Jianghu. Because weaker offspring would age rapidly and die if they left the golden tree. Therefore, the martial gods who appeared throughout Jianghu were terrifyingly strong because they were the strongest progeny born from the golden tree. And in recent centuries, the strongest is the Valkyrie. The Valkyrie has become so powerful she could leave the golden tree to roam Jianghu. But once she leaves it, she also ages. So during her aging, she returns under the golden tree to extend her life. The way to extend life is by continually mating with the first-generation martial god inside the golden tree, giving birth to new offspring, until a new offspring defeats the Valkyrie mother to become the new martial god. But over the years, whether the Valkyrie is too strong or the golden tree has weakened, the newly born offspring are no match for the Valkyrie. They all died at the hands of the Valkyrie mother, turning into mummies under the tree, resembling each other because they were the Valkyrie's offspring. Hearing this answer, Duanyun couldn't help but quip, "So, the Valkyrie is like a sow that both births and kills? Playing with a tree like this, even among the evil demon outsiders, counts as perverted. She truly deserves to die." Under the tree there were at least dozens of corpses, thinking that they were all born from the Valkyrie, then died in mother-offspring conflict, turning into mummies, becoming part of the Valkyrie's array. Isn't that perverted and terrifying enough? This is simply another realm of killing and immorality. The second son was thunderstruck by Duanyun's words, shouting, "Do not insult the Valkyrie. I want to be a great hero." Before he could finish his sentence, he was again infected by Duanyun's pure white heroic spirit, with a face full of heroism. At that moment, the second son shouted again, "Valkyrie, my heavens!" His internal heroic spirit had not dissipated. So he shouted again, "Swear loyalty to young hero Duan unto death." The second son became as if driven to madness, twisting his body, wanting to respect the Valkyrie on one hand, and swear allegiance to the young hero on the other. Am I someone who belongs to the young hero, or the Valkyrie? The Valkyrie is heaven. Young hero Duan wants to pierce heaven. Who should I help? No, the Valkyrie is a sow, who naturally likes to be pierced. Then I should help the young hero pierce the sow. Hearing this, Duanyun's face darkened, not knowing whether to say his awareness was high or his emotional intelligence low. What does it mean for the young hero to pierce the sow? But in the overall sense, he leaned towards the heroic side, making Duanyun feel rather relieved. His supreme heroic spirit still moved him. Ha ha ha. I understand now. I really understand. I should help the young hero pierce the mother. With a bang, before he could finish, his skull flew off, and yellowish brain matter splattered all over. The golden part was still writhing. This was the first time Duanyun felt the truth of the phrase. The golden leaf is a living thing. This leaf was like a kind of insect. This insect would control the human mind, making them swear absolute allegiance to the Valkyrie, and if ever violated, it would cause the infected to die by brain explosion. Damn it, to stand against the heroic spirit of this young hero to such an extent. Such an awakened heroic knight was killed just like that. Truly the evil demon outsiders. A firm resolve formed in young hero Duan's mind. He felt that he was just like the enraged son Wukong from Wuzhuang Temple, determined not to rest until this damned tree and the Sao Valkyrie were uprooted. Almost at the same moment, the Murong brothers, who were washing clothes for Ning Qing, suddenly stood there motionless. Ning Qing frowned and said, "What's going on? Did you hear something? What sound?" "The voice of old demon Duan calling me." Ning Qing looked around left and right, seeing no one, only feeling a chill, and said, "What is he calling you for?" He said, "Return to your position. Jade Pearl heroes, return to your place, to slay the demon extermination's fangs." Duan Yun, though momentarily as furious as a monkey, wished to uproot the golden tree and Valkyrie, then set fire to them alongside the mad woman's frenzy. Yet he knew that with the Valkyrie relying on those mummified sons and daughters, coupled with the golden tree's home ground advantage, he might not gain from a direct confrontation. Duan Yun decided to return and gather the Jade Pearl heroes to commence the hero's demon-slaying mission. "Since you have mummified assistants, it's only reasonable for me to find some help as well, right?" Duan Yun quickly made up his mind, and although Hong Mingtian and others coveted the secrets of the Golden Tree and Valkyrie, they chose to leave with him. After all, they realized that relying solely on themselves, even reaching the Golden Palace, wouldn't net them any benefit and instead might lead to sudden death. But there were still ambitious ones, since after Hong Mingtian announced his return, at least a third of the disciples disappeared during their planning. Clearly, this group wanted to stay and continue investigating the mysteries of the Golden Palace. Unwilling to simply return, they wished to take a gamble. Duan Yun did not care about them. In truth, the core of this righteous army wasn't so righteous. It was only under his strong influence that they showed some semblance of righteousness. If someone wanted to court death, he wouldn't stop them. The secrets of the Golden Palace and Valkyrie were likely far from simple as they appeared or sounded. Unbeknownst to Duan Yun, while he intended to call upon the Yuzhu Manor's crowd to slay demons, the Green Blade Demon had already heard his summons in advance. This could be described as demonic telepathy. After all, the two could be said to be closest comrades, having gone through more together than Duan Yun's pair of wings Feng Linger and Shining. Brother Murong considered that if he were a woman, in front of old demon Duan, he'd surely be the primary wife. Ning Qing found Brother Murong whimsical, clearly being with her, yet feeling Duan Yun was calling him. I, a woman, made every effort not to think of handsome Duan Yun, only focusing on you. Here you are, a man, and yet desiring him. From her understanding, this time Duan Yun aimed to explore the secrets of the Golden Palace, and these were no trifling matters. He wouldn't return for at least 10 to 15 days. Unexpectedly, within 2 days, Duan Yun did return. Brother Murong stood at the doorway, and from afar saw Duan Yun. Duan Yun saw him too. As Duan Yun approached the courtyard door, Brother Murong suddenly raised his neck and began singing loudly, "Oh, I knew you'd come to find me to slay demons and monsters. I came to find you to slay demons and monsters." Duan Yun echoed in song. The next moment, they laughed heartily, facing the sky, and entered together, leaving Ning Qing and Ziyu behind, bewildered. What was wrong with these two? Meeting and immediately breaking into song, making it appear so passionate. By contrast, the two of them seemed quite foolish. Just when Duan Yun returned to Qinghe City, the Goddess Catcher sisters also entered the city. In truth, they weren't too concerned with Yushi Sek's invitation, because the sisters understood very well. Within Qinghe City's sect gatherings, it essentially meant dogs biting dogs. However, given that Yushi Sek's sect master was acquainted with the Qingqi Bureau, and coupled with a major murder case, of course they couldn't refuse. Therefore, upon arriving in Qinghe City, the two goddess catchers bore weariness on their faces. Though stunningly attractive, there was also a hint of casual fatigue. In this season, corpses decay fast, and to ensure the bodies remained fresh, Yushi Sect had placed over 10 corpses in ice cellars, awaiting the goddess catcher's investigation. As the ice in the cellar was broken, it revealed the bodies of the Grey Eagle Gang members. Leng Yiming viewed the wounds on these bodies, now turning white, and said seriously, Specifically, tell me how they died. It said the murderer pretended to be a handsome doctor and went to treat the Grey Eagle gang leader Chun Huixin, after which he killed the leader and gang members. None who faced him survived. Yushi Sect's second sect master Lin Mu introduced warmly. Lung Yixue and Lung Yiming, as attractive goddess catchers, particularly attracted him. So he included his own understanding, adding to the explanation, I strongly suspect this person is originally hideous, hence disguised as a handsome doctor. People often wish to pretend to have what they lack. Saying this, he flicked his folding fan, striking a suave pose. Upon hearing this modus operandi, Lung Yixue and Lung Yiming quickly examined the corpses closely. Sharp sword fingers penetrated the vital points of these bodies and pierced through Lung Yiming and Lung Yixue's hearts. The two exchanged glances, telepathically pondering, could it be him? Is it really him? He resembled him, regardless of tactic or approach, nearly identical to the Lishui town case. Since their farewell at Yuzhu Manor, Lung Yiming and Lung Yixue, these sister flowers, hadn't seen Duan Yun again, but they deeply remembered him. From the first meeting on the town outskirts to the reunion at Lishui town, they deeply inhaled his scent from the residual clothes in the old mansion and later witnessed firsthand his prowess in vanquishing members of the Thunder God and Mother sect outside Wangchun City. Lung Yiming and Lung Yixue believed their fate was intertwined inescapably. After experiencing old demon Duan's allure, they felt little interest in anything else, because no demon matched such a presence. The trait of melding hero and demon and hero, was peerless, irresistibly drawing them. As if encountering rare and immensely valuable objects, both sisters couldn't resist wanting to handle and admire them carefully. Yet Duan Yun's attitude towards them was ambivalent. Their goddess-catcher pride prevented close contact. Thus, this elusive pursuit intrigued them all the more. Occasionally hearing about Duan Yun's exploits, the two of them remained outwardly calm. Yet in truth, they were thrilled and happy, even feeling a faint sense of bliss. From the start of Duan Yun's career, they had interactions with him, feeling like they watched the demon grow up. This feeling of growing up is quite similar to watching a child grow up. The two sisters thought that there would be little interaction with Duan Yun in the future, but here, they unexpectedly stumbled upon traces of him. If they continue their investigation, they will surely find him. If he gets angry and refuses to admit his guilt, won't he end up using force on them? If he does use force, they certainly can't resist and can only endure silently. But if this leads to having his child, shouldn't he propose to them and marry them formally? But the goddess catcher and the demon are inherently antagonistic, they surely wouldn't agree then. But for the sake of peace in the martial world, they might be forced to agree tearfully for the greater good. No, why include my sister? Clearly my connection with Duan Yun is deeper. Lung Yiming thought so. Just when the two goddess catchers were almost certain about the murderer, letting their imaginations run wild, the second sect master of the Yushi sect, Lin Mu, was still there wisely analyzing that the murderer himself was extremely ugly. Lung Yiming glanced at him and couldn't help but silently mock. Do you look like that and still judge others' appearances? Yes, whether Duan Yun is handsome or not, this divine catcher would know better. Even that guy's appearance doesn't compare to the green blade demon beside Duan Yun. Duan Yun is extraordinarily handsome, so compared to such a self-declared ugly person, he is even more charming. Thinking that Duan Yun is nearby, Lung Yiming and Lung Yixue felt a bit of excitement trembling through them. Lung Yiming and Lung Yixue soon left there under the pretense of solving a case. Second sect master Lin Mu stood there, reminiscing about his handsome image just now. Couldn't help but say, why do I feel like they see me as an idiot? Thinking about it, he couldn't help but recall the times when he was rejected by other goddess catchers, which made him quite indignant. The goddess catcher is indeed beautiful, but her mother is entirely shadow. For a moment, Lin Mu only felt insulted, his whole body shaking. Lung Yixue and Lung Yiming had always acted calmly, but when they reached a secluded place, they suddenly held hands. Sister Lung Yixue said, "Is it really him?" Lung Yiming confirmed with confidence. "It's definitely him. Not just because of that doctor's vicious methods and his incredibly skilled sword finger, but also the scent. His scent is here. Even if he turned to ash, I could still smell his scent. Saying this, Lung Yiming's nose twitched slightly as she took a deep breath, revealing a greedy expression. She realized Duan Yun was very close to them, right in the city. At this moment, she felt a bit worried about Duan Yun having her child because of the case and whether her parents would agree. So she asked, "Sister, what should we do?" "Let's find him first and see." Sister Lung Yishue was clearly much more composed and objective. She knew Duan Yun must have his reasons for killing those people. And Duan Yun's reasons are never unfounded. Duan Yun returned to his place and quickly recounted the events. The heroine souls of Feng Linger and Shun Ying suddenly reawakened, eager and ready for action. Having been in Qinghe City for so long, finally, it was their turn to shine as Heroine Dang and Red Heroine. In conclusion, without these women, young hero Duan wouldn't be complete, he just wouldn't be the same. The Jade Pearl heroes were inherently a group of people with strong action capabilities. One moment they were eating hot pot in the village, listening to Duan Yun talk about the golden tree and Valkyrie, and the next they were on their way. Still eating hot pot, only now carried by the Murong brothers, who ate as they walked. Because Duan Yun returned relatively late, the heroes needed to reach the first overnight spot as soon as possible. If they didn't hurry today, the Valkyrie and Golden Tree would live another night. The urgency to eradicate demons was pressing. They couldn't allow them to survive another night. At night, Duan Yun and his group stopped on a hillside. It was a camping ground previously developed at Red Tower Mountain, now claimed by the young heroes. Among them, Ziyu was the most exhausted. She went to Taoyuan village with Duan Yun, came back to call others, and then continued on the journey, essentially always on the road. The key is that when other heroines were camped and resting, she had to stay up writing. This time, she was determined to join the battle against the Valkyrie. Because this should be the most exciting part. Without a bloodthirsty audience's curiosity, you can't write a good book. The guard for the night was the Murong brothers. As the second most handsome young hero in the estate, when the first was tired and needed rest, it was his turn to stand up. He puffed on the blood life smoke, driving away the poisonous insects nearby. During this time, he occasionally glanced at Duan Yun and Ning Qing. Ning Qing suddenly sat up and asked, "Why do you keep looking at him?" The Murong brothers were puzzled. "Did I? I remember always looking at you." "No, you looked at him 32 times, and only 13 times at me," Ning Qing answered. Goodness, she even counted. The Murong brothers' mind lit up, explaining, "That's because he owes me a lot of money. I'm afraid something might happen to him." Ning Qing was skeptical, but she couldn't help looking at Duan Yun lying by the campfire. One could only say that this guy's lying posture wasn't particularly graceful, forming a great character, yet he was indeed pleasing to the eye. Especially when he's asleep, it's as if the term old demon has distanced. There's a gentle feeling, which easily arouses the desire to protect, and even maternal instincts. The desire to cradle him in swaddling clothes as his mother. Yes, if not for old demon Duan's formidable methods, he would likely have been turned into some kind of spectacle by the desire girls in the martial world. In this martial world, a man being good-looking is a crime, subject to the gaze and judgment of countless women. What the Murong brothers said wasn't entirely false. He was indeed worried something might happen to Duan Yun. It stemmed from Duan Yun's injuries from the battle with the Valkyrie, which have yet to completely heal. The kind of injuries that reach deeply into the internal organs aren't easy to recover from. Surviving a strike from the legendary Valkyrie is already a miracle. And after taking such a hit, this guy, instead of biding his time to heal, is in a rush to finish her, which only shows his true nature. Because Duan Yun is confident with his extraordinary wisdom, he judged that the Valkyrie wasn't in better shape than him. Now that they have reassembled, they hold the advantage. At this moment, the Murong brothers took a deep drag from the pipe, exhaling with a sense of fleeting life. The sentimentally sensitive green saber young hero couldn't help but feel his tears welling up, unable to stop them from flowing. Long-lasting hatred flows eastward with the river, endless hatred stretches on. In an instant, a wave of sadness enveloped the Morong brother. Sorrow flowed as a reverse current. Amidst the swirling smoke, the Morong brother seemed to truly find himself in a long river. The river's surface was smooth as a mirror, reflecting his face and also his past. He was the Morong family's most handsome and fairest young master in 3 generations, blessed with unmatched sword technique talent from a young age, mastering the 12 layers of spring rain to enter the martial world. There were rarely survivors under his gentle knife, and amidst the beautiful misty rain, he encountered one woman after another he fancied. This was Unfortunately, at this point, the script's trajectory drastically changed. The curse of the demon blade fell upon his handsome self. All the women he liked turned into sisters. Every deep emotional bond became an inescapable entanglement, leaving him in anguish, heartbroken. The world naturally also offered him joy, like allowing him to live anew, experiencing friendship with old demon Duan, and stumbling along with Ning Qing. Yet at this moment, in the face of this river, he couldn't recall these things, only able to feel pain and sorrow. The river reflected his visage, carrying a sense of wind frost. The Morong brother was immersed, unable to extricate himself, and his green jade saber emitted wisps of sword intent. Duan Yun, Feng Linger, Shining, all initially asleep, one by one awakened. Upon waking, they couldn't help but feel the urge to cry. They all glanced at Morong brother, who was smoking, because they sensed this was the sword intent of Morong brother. This guy seemingly became the embodiment of sadness, making them all sorrowful. Ning Qing looked at Morong brother, whose face had turned green, wanting to wake him up, but was stopped by Duan Yun, because he knew this was a pivotal moment for Morong brother in comprehending the way. Even smoking could lead to comprehension. Morong brother, are you cheating? Yes, at this moment even Duan Yun felt some absurdity. In the next instant, Morong brother opened his eyes, and the sword intent surrounding him transformed again, from extreme sadness to a touch of tranquility, faintly having the air of a grandmaster. Just a few aspects of wind and frost. The Morong brother exhaled a series of smoke rings, murmured. The Morong brothers seemed to have an epiphany while smoking, emitting a strong aura of melancholy. This aura eventually transformed into just a few whiffs of wind and frost. That's all. This sudden insight, while seemingly transcendent, was indeed filled with endless bitterness, making all who sensed it want to weep. Damn it, even the usually strong young heroes and lady heroes wanted to cry. How deep must the sorrow be? More strangely, after smoking this cigarette, a few strands of the Morong brothers' hair suddenly turned white. At this moment, his already green hair mixed with the newly white strands gave Duan Yun a feeling of a Tony teacher's dye job. However, the impression of a bitter swordsman was even stronger. A black bird was shedding tears in the branches of a nearby large tree when the Morong brothers lifted a hand, and a streak of sword chi hit the bird's abdomen. The black bird's body trembled and fell from the branch. Though it was struck by the sword chi, the bird did not die. Instead, it writhed in pain on the ground. Visibly, even though it was a bird with limited expressions, it gave off an overwhelming sense of varied agony. In the blink of an eye, the bird's jet-black crown turned into a blue and white hue, like an old man who had weathered the storms. This sword intent can even dye people's hair? No, it doesn't just dye the hair. It completely alters the mindsets of people and animals, making a once-spirited bird lose all its sharpness and become a weathered old bird. At this moment, an even more horrifying scene unfolded as the black feathers on the bird transformed into white and green, particularly around the abdomen, where the feathers and skin intermingled in blue and red, resembling some kind of famed artifact or pattern. Silver pattern? Can even imprint a silver pattern on someone? If marked with this pattern, unless one turns into a white tiger, they'll carry the humiliation for life. Suddenly, everyone felt the terrifying nature of the green blade demon. Even young hero Duan was astounded. With just one strike from the Morong brothers, one wouldn't just have their hair dyed. They'd also be imprinted with patterns. If they smoked another cigarette, they'd be ready to hit the dance floor at a bar. The Morong brothers felt it wasn't enough. With blue and white strands drifting, he suddenly looked at Duan Yun and the others, saying, I feel that this newly comprehended sword intent hasn't been fully utilized yet. Feng Linger exclaimed in shock. How else do you want to unleash it? I feel using it on a person can fully showcase its power. The Morong brothers explained. Duan Yun pondered. If you want to test your blade, there will be many opportunities in the village, especially when facing that evil Valkyrie. You can fully exert it. The Morong brothers nodded. You're right. I'll cultivate for 2 more days and then unleash it all on that Valkyrie. At this moment, he already recalled the Valkyrie's fearsome reputation. This was an evil demon even old demon Duan couldn't defeat, a legendary figure in the martial world. This time, let's see how old demon with the green blade. This time, if young hero Duan can't cut it, let's see how young hero Morong performs. Thinking this, the Morong brothers temporarily gave up the idea of testing their blade on people, allowing everyone to breathe a sigh of relief. The last time they were this tense was when Duan Yun comprehended the Ming Chao. Back then, they would kneel before Duan Yun and murmur softly, a humiliating and unforgettable stance. Then, the group continued their journey. The blood life smoke was borrowed by Duan Yun from the Red Tower Mountain, and everyone smoked a bit to fend off insects. Though this wasn't their first time on this path, the dangers it presented were still terrifying. Especially the swarms of poisonous insects that, once on the move, covered the sky like ancient beasts, terrifying indeed. It must be said that the blood life smoke was quite a cost-effective choice. This substance wasn't lethal to experts like Duan Yun and his companions. Moreover, Duan Yun, a highly skilled gynecologist, could treat them at any time. Without this blood life smoke, of all of them, only Duan Yun's breaking body sword energy and Xin Ying's silk armor could relatively effortlessly fend off the insect swarms. On the 3rd morning, the Jade Pearl heroes passed through the dark forest, and suddenly their eyes were dazzled. The exuberant peach blossoms were in full bloom, stunningly beautiful. Duan Yun and Ziyu couldn't help but feel a very peculiar sensation. Every time they left, this peach grove was the same. Maybe for thousands of years or even longer it had always been like this. With this thought in mind, this bright peach grove seemed tinged with an ancient flavor, instilling awe. However, those seeing this peach grove for the first time clearly didn't feel this way. They were all absorbed in the breathtaking beauty, gasping in admiration. The Morong brothers were particularly close with Ning Qing, and if not for the Morong brothers gathering strength for the Valkyrie, they might have succumbed to the allure under the moon and flowers. At this moment, with half of his hair blue and half white, he began to recite a poem. 1 petal, 2 petals, 3 or 4 petals, 5 petals, 6 petals, 7 or 8 petals, falling into the fragrant grass unseen. Ziyu, standing beside Duan Yun amidst the peach grove, shared a similar feeling and couldn't help but say, Have you heard a saying? 1 tree becomes a forest? 1 tree becomes a forest? Duan Yun asked, puzzled. In this world, there are some unusual species, inherently large and extraordinary. For instance, Ba Mountain has a black bamboo forest, where people easily get lost, and it's said that forest has only 1 bamboo. A massive bamboo, all the bamboos actually grow on that gigantic bamboo, Ziyu explained. You mean this peach grove is similar, perhaps this grove is actually just 1 tree, and the peach trees we see all grow from that giant peach tree, Duan Yun considered. Duan, you're amazing to have guessed that, Ziyu said coquettishly, her voice suddenly sweet and gentle. Behind the two, Feng Linger and Shun Ying clenched their fists tightly. Shining couldn't help but say, Didn't you say the author doesn't play many mind games? Feng Linger replied, This might be that crazy sister. Why do I feel like both the sister and the sister-in-law are her own creations? Feng Linger exclaimed in shock. Is this woman that devious? Duan Yun coughed, reminding the Morong brothers, who were having spring fever under the peach tree, to act normal. The Morong brothers instantly resumed their guise as white-haired, weathered saber masters, and began brewing their sword intent anew. He named this new sword intent Fragments of Wind Frost. And now his task was to make this sword intent as rich as aged wine, to present entirely to that Valkyrie. On this journey, he had heard Duan Yun describe the Valkyrie as a tall female pig, which only fueled his brewing further. Beyond the peach grove was the fairy cave. Duan Yun and Ziyu, having been here before, were leading the way. The fairy cave was a typical narrow pass, just barely allowing a person to pass through. But this time Duan Yun suddenly discovered it was even difficult for a person to pass through, because Ziyu up ahead got stuck. Ziyu was the standard curvaceous figure that easily got stuck in narrow caves. But last time she clearly could pass, yet this time she got stuck. Duan Yun, behind her, couldn't help but tease, "Have you gained weight recently?" Ziyu retorted, "Nonsense, I haven't." Ahead, Ziyu, encountering narrower spots, feared getting stuck again and voluntarily invoked sword chi to widen the path. As she poked, she complained, "This is definitely narrower than before." Duan Yun said, "Can this cave really get narrower? Could it be transformed by a fairy?" At the mention of fairy, the Murong brothers behind couldn't help but get excited, asking, "What fairy? Where's the fairy?" Duan Yun teased, "This here is the fairy cave. You're inside the fairy's hole." "What?" Murong brothers quickly started feeling the cave walls, saying, "No wonder it feels warm and moist." Ziyu, Duan Yun, Ning Qing behind couldn't help but punch him on the head, saying angrily, "Can you be serious for a moment?" She suddenly realized, loving a hero nicknamed Green Blade Old Demon was really tiring, because she thought he was kind of special at times. Of course, special was putting it generously, going as far as to say he was perverted. But she believed there'd be no problem being together. They've been through a lot. At worst she'd just follow him in craziness.
Ning King silently complained.
As the standard obedient man who listens to women, Murong brothers instantly put on a serious face, saying, "This evil demon's cave is truly evil. Even the name is so unrighteous." In the next moment only a cry of "ouch" was heard, as the Murong brothers' protruding buttocks got stuck. "Help, brother! Give me a hand." Duan Yun was silent, pointing to the cave wall. Afterwards, the group finally passed through the fairy cave. Ziyu gasped, saying, "This cave really gets smaller. No wonder after all these years, only a few people can find it." Duan Yun gradually came to realize. For centuries, people in the martial world never stopped exploring the Golden Palace's martial god treasure vault. Yet those who could truly reach it were very few. This probably had an inseparable relationship with this fairy cave. The fairy cave would get smaller. The most conventional guess was it was related to the four seasons. It would enlarge in the hot summer, forming a passage for people to traverse. But as time passed, it would shrink, making passage difficult. Yes, outside of this season, even if people reached this peach blossom forest, they probably couldn't enter Taoyuan village from the fairy cave. Moreover, the Golden Mountain during summer was particularly perilous. Fewer people sought treasure, and even fewer would reach here. Despite being stuck by the fairy cave, the Jade Pearl heroes eventually returned smoothly to Taoyuan village. Despite many people having died previously in Taoyuan village, they still warmly welcomed them. It seemed no matter if one was a righteous hero or an evil demon, they were treated equally and warmly welcomed. Duan Yun and Ziyu had long gotten used to the behavior of this group, while the Murong brothers marveled at how simple and hospitable the people were here. Meeting late at night. As an old hand, Murong brothers immediately understood the other's intention. Were the girls here really this warm and hospitable? But considering he still had Ning Qing, he decided to keep his heart and chastity intact, not making a move. By now it was quite late. Duan Yun decided they'd rest well for the night and start fresh tomorrow. Yes, he still needed to take advantage of the remaining time to heal most of the unrecovered injuries inside him. He faintly sensed that, besides her formidable body, the Valkyrie probably had other cards up her sleeve. Even though the Jade Pearl heroes were assembled, he couldn't be careless. At night, demon electricity coursed through Duan Yun, crackling noisily. The internal injury he suffered this time was undoubtedly severe. Even though he healed every night, it still hadn't recovered. Shin Ying and Feng Linger secretly watched Duan Yun's shirtless healing, their gazes shifting from admiring his beautiful physique to growing serious. They'd always been very optimistic, and when acting with Duan Yun, they were near invincible, never failing. But this time was no small matter. Firstly, the Valkyrie's reputation had a substantial impact on them. They weren't like Duan Yun, a newcomer in the martial world for only 2.5 years. They'd heard of the Valkyrie's renown since childhood, effectively confronting a martial arts myth from their memories. Then there was Duan Yun's injury. They'd never seen Duan Yun's injury not heal after days of treatment, indicating the Valkyrie's fearsome power. But it was this very point that fueled their urge to beat the Valkyrie. The Jade Pearl heroes were always on the side of justice, and if the Valkyrie harmed young hero Duan, that was being against martial arts righteousness. Yes, even if you possess the battle-scarred name of martial god, striking the young hero was wrong. It was evil. While Duan Yun and others were recuperating in the village, panting sounds echoed from within the fairy cave. "Sis, it's too tight here. We're stuck. Can you back out?" Ahead, Lung Yiming squeezed through the cave, panting heavily. Lung Yishue had a troubled look, saying, "No, even backing out is stuck." The Valkyrie sisters who had been tracing Duan Yun's scent were now in a predicament. Within Qingqi Bureau, their tracking prowess might not be number one, but the size of their chests could contest for first. And it was this happy trouble that made their progress difficult here. "Sis, I can smell him, he just passed by." Lung Yiming sniffed with her nostrils while making a strong push forward. Unfortunately, even though the cave entrance had been chiseled by Duan Yun and others, it was still difficult for the sisters. Lung Yishue looked at the robe she was wearing and said, "I feel it's not just because our chests are large, but because these clothes are too thick." The outfits worn by the two divine catchers weren't actually thick, but the armor-style heart protector made certain areas relatively thick and tough. "Let's try taking off our clothes." With a clanging sound, 2 heart protectors, like silver bowls, fell to the ground, shaking audibly. Lung Yishue, sweating, gazed at the pitch-dark entrance, took a deep breath, and let her chest depress as much as possible. In the next moment, she tightened her solid legs and thrust forward, finally moving through. "It's moving, finally moving." The 2 women, drenched with sweat and clothes soaked, still pressed forward. It wasn't just because they wanted to confront Duan Yun, the villain who annihilated whole families, but also because they vaguely guessed Duan Yun had discovered some secret of Golden Mountain, bringing him here. As for what secret, they weren't particularly clear since they recently arrived in Qinghe City and knew little about Duan Yun and Red Tower Mountain's last expedition. But they had some guesses. Wasn't it possible that Duan Yun discovered the secret of the Golden Palace? As the divine catchers, they couldn't refuse developing such intense interest in a demon like Duan Yun. And as folks of martial world, they couldn't reject the Golden Palace's Valkyrie's secrets either. The convergence of 2 irresistibly alluring things was practically a spellbinding temptation that made their souls tremble. How could they refuse? No matter how large their chests, no matter how narrow this cave, it couldn't stop them from moving forward. At that moment, the twin sisters' eyes were filled with determination and a longing to peek into mysteries. As dawn broke, the Jade Pearl heroes, led by Duan Yun, bought some steamed buns and dumplings from the villagers and set off. The villagers looked at the silver coins in their hands, somewhat bewildered. In their village, silver coins were never used. Everything in every household was shared, including their wives. The Murong brothers didn't have time to marvel at the genius of the place and the enthusiasm of the girls. They were eager to meet the Sao Valkyrie. Their long-awaited sword intent was ready to burst forth. If he hadn't held back fiercely the night before, some girl from the village might have already fallen victim. He was determined to mark the Valkyrie with the Wind Frost trademarked bite. Among them, only Duan Yun had reached the golden tree inside the Taoist temple, so he relied on his memory to find the path. However, after leaving the village, he faced an endless forest, and finding the previous path wasn't easy. This temporary confusion made Duan Yun a bit embarrassed, and he couldn't help but feel the urge to burn the forest to the ground. The damn forest dared to block the path of a young hero, making it seem like the forest itself was the evil demon. Fortunately, at that moment, the sharp-eyed Shining looked in a certain direction and said, "That tree is newly broken." This was obviously a trace left by Duan Yun when he killed the village leader. With this, the path became much easier to find. Along the way, there were traces of dried blood and a section of white bone. Clearly, these were left by the village leader before his death. Eventually, the group saw the leader's dead body, eyes wide open. Looking at the twisted corpse, everyone couldn't help but share the same thought. Offending old demon Duan leads to a miserable end. At this point, two red snakes emerged from the leader's rotting eye sockets, devouring the flesh, creating a rather horrifying scene. By now, they were very close to the Taoist temple. Unknowingly, a heavy mist had already risen around them. The mist was so thick that it was impossible to see people just a few steps away, like a ghostly area. Last time, Duan Yun found the entrance to the temple through the golden leaves. But this time, there were no golden leaves to lead the way. Under such dense fog, it was hard to find the path, even if one were to trip over their own feet. The marks left by Duan Yun were shallow, coupled with the thick mist. Even the sharp-eyed Shining couldn't find the traces for a while. Indeed, her eyes were so dry from looking. At this moment, Duan Yun couldn't help but recall an old acquaintance. To be precise, it should be two. The goddess catcher sisters were particularly skilled in tracking techniques, able to pinpoint paths just by using their noses, which would be very helpful here. As Duan Yun thought about this, Lung Yiming, miles away, suddenly sneezed. The two women, having come and gone from the fairy cave several times, finally exited. But they didn't have time to wipe the sweat off their bodies before noticing the scent of Duan Yun changing in the air, and quickly continued tracking. They hadn't even entered the village but had circled around to this area of the forest. The mist rising in the forest made the place appear eerie. Sister Lung Yiming suddenly sneezed, scaring Sister Lung Ishue into a jump. She couldn't help but complain, "What are you doing?" Lung Yiming murmured, "I sense it. It must be him thinking of me." Lung Ishue hesitated for a moment, then retorted, "Stop dreaming." Lung Yiming insisted, "I really think he's thinking of me." Simultaneously, her voice softened significantly, because this likely indicated they were very close to old demon Duan. Every time they thought they were getting closer to Duan Yun, they couldn't help but feel excited, elated, and an uncontrollable mild fear. This feeling of being both afraid and eager to meet was truly irresistible. Until Shining rubbed her dry eyes several times, and their group finally found the entrance to the Taoist temple. The entrance to the temple was the same as last time, covered in moss, like the face of an old man with overgrown scabs, exuding an ancient and obsolete aura. The Murong brothers, thinking of the Valkyrie inside, overflowing with sword intent, couldn't help but say, "I'll go first." This time, before the Murong brothers and others could marvel at the temple's ancientness and mystery, the group had already aggressively moved towards the heavenly pit behind the steps. The closer they got to the heavenly pit, the thicker the fog became, like milky liquid. If it was difficult to see a figure a few steps away before, now, even a few steps away, Duan Yun could only distinguish who was who from their behinds. For instance, Feng Linger and Shining had curved backsides, but there were subtle differences between them. Facing the fog thick as milk, everyone seemed much more cautious. Only the Murong brothers appeared confident. Their overwhelming sword intent dyed their hair white like frost. What they wanted now was to vent this few strands of wind frost sword intent. For if they didn't release it soon, it would overflow. The Murong brothers paced leisurely, looking confident, as if he was the leader of the Jade Pearl heroes. The Murong brothers himself enjoyed this feeling. Now he had comprehended the few strands of wind frost, and his sword technique was on another level, believing the gap with Duan Yun had narrowed. Now, how could he not be the main force? Let me handle the evil Sao Valkyrie that old demon Duan couldn't deal with. Thinking of this, the Murong brothers treaded even more gracefully. The next moment, only a cry of "Hey! Hey!" was heard, and the Murong brothers had already vanished from everyone's sight. Feng Linger reacted first and said, "This idiot fell into the pit." The Murong brothers' agile right foot misstepped, and his whole body fell straight down the pit. However, his light body skills were notable, and after rolling twice, he sprang back up like a carp, only to trip over a vine and roll down like a ball again. As he rolled down, he suddenly discovered many thorny objects on the slope, and quickly used his energy to shield himself. Crack, 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 crack. Sparks flew with a flash of lightning as the Murong brothers landed at the bottom of the pit. Thanks to his timely energy burst, although he was pricked by hidden thorns mid-fall, he was only slightly scratched. Upon abruptly hitting the bottom, the snake-like tree roots surrounding him instilled a sense of terror. The previously confident Murong brothers now felt a chill, and couldn't help but call out, "Duan!" He bizarrely found that the fog seemed to swallow sound, his shout quickly becoming faint and weak. With the pit being so deep and the fog so dense and eerie, Murong brothers gripped the jade blade, waiting. But in this thick fog, he never met up with Duan Yun and the others. The fog had indeed separated him from the main group. The once vigorous Murong brothers suddenly became much calmer. He had just been full of vigor, not only because his sword intent was nearly overflowing, but also because he knew Duan Yun was backing him. Just like when he faced the Manor Master at Ghost Manor, even if he couldn't defeat him, as long as he held on until Duan Yun arrived, their united effort would spell victory. And now, Duan Yun should have reached the bottom of the pit too. Yet because of this thick fog, he felt exceedingly alone. "Duan, take care of Ning Qing for me." This time, true chi rippled within Murong brothers, unleashing the lion roar technique. But as soon as the sound floated out, the surrounding fog surged, causing a piercing buzzing noise. The sound scattered chaotically, no longer resembling human words, but more like the cries of a demon, startling the Murong brothers. He knew very well, whether it was due to the fog or some peculiar mechanism array in the pit, it prevented his voice from effectively reaching out. Or if it did, it was all scrambled, more likely confusing his comrades. The Murong brothers, worthy of being old riverside veterans, managed to stay calm at this moment. He suddenly dropped his pants to urinate, letting some of his overflowing sword intent flow out along with the urine. Just then, several swooshing sounds were heard, terrifying the urinating Murong brothers. In the dense mist ahead, several clusters of dark golden light appeared. These lights appeared like clusters of dark golden fire. He tightened his pants, wiped his hands on his clothing, and slowly approached with his knife drawn. Now his sword intent was at its peak. Even if it were actual demons or monsters, young hero Murong would not fear. At this moment, he was only 2 or 3 steps away from the nearest glow. In the dense fog, the Murong brothers finally saw what it was. It was a half-human-sized pill furnace, made of stone, intricately carved with immortal crane and cloud patterns on its surface. And the golden glow was emanating from within the furnace. The Murong brothers pried open the pill furnace and frowned involuntarily. Inside the furnace was a bubbling stew, with teeth and hair swirling amidst golden leaves floating. This looked very much like human flesh stewed, utterly terrifying and disgusting. The Murong brothers looked around and found similar pill furnaces everywhere. Along the way, Duan Yun had vaguely mentioned the golden tree beneath which a large-breasted Valkyrie resided, a thought that had frequented his thoughts countless times. However, Duan Yun's story omitted these details. These pill furnaces were clearly new additions. What exactly were the devilish outsiders trying to accomplish beneath this golden tree? Along the way, he squatted down and found a smoke pipe from a crack among the roots. The Murong brothers instantly realized whose blood and flesh were in these pill furnaces. Duan Yun and Ziyu had infiltrated the Red Tower Mountain team, reaching Taoyuan village, and upon leaving, some disciples of Red Tower Mountain, driven by ambition, refused to leave and abandoned the team on their own accord. They sought to find the Golden Palace, the treasure trove of the martial god, hoping to change their lives overnight. This group of people must have made it here, then encountered the Valkyrie under the tree, unable to defeat her even with all their might, and eventually turned into pots of dark golden broth. Thinking of this, a chill ran down the Murong brothers' spine. These individuals had already perished here, indicating the Valkyrie's hunting grounds, and he had become prey as well. Perhaps the legendary Valkyrie was right behind him, waiting to... Suddenly, Murong brothers struck out, slashing the jade blade backward, for he had sensed the approach of the hunter. Brother! The flowing blade ceased abruptly, and a cold fingertip was only an inch away from his back. Duan Yun stood behind the Murong brothers, as both let out a long breath and withdrew their attacks. Had Duan Yun not spoken in time, he might have been struck, his hair and body hair discolored, and Murong brothers would have collapsed, incontinent, perhaps even suffering twisted, severe injuries amid the tide of sound. The tricks of both old demons were enough to humiliate someone completely. Can you not sneak up on me like that? Murong brothers grumbled. In this environment, it's truly terrifying to be startled by this dead ghost. Duan Yun retorted, something's off with the sound here. I made noises, but you didn't hear. Where are they? Murong brothers asked. Duan Yun raised his hand, revealing a thin thread swaying on his wrist. It wasn't long before 4 beautiful women approached along the thread. Who else would they be but Feng Linger and her companions? When did you join up without calling me? Murong brothers grumbled. Shun Ying retorted. You suddenly fell into the pit walking ahead. How was I to join you? When the Murong brothers fell into the pit, Ning Qing was anxious to go down and rescue them. But Shen Ying reacted the fastest, using her 9-death silkworm silk to bind everyone together, because she had long sensed the strangeness of this mist. Looking at the flesh and blood in the pill furnace, Duan Yun murmured, looks like she knew I would come back, so she used some tricks again. In fact, between masters, besides the clash of moves, there's also an exchange of intention. The more they fight, the more they can sense what kind of person the opponent is. In some casual books, during life-and-death duels between masters, they end up stripping naked and embracing each other, even becoming lovers in the end. Seems absurd, but there's logic to it. That's when each other's intentions collide. They suddenly realize they're very compatible, leading to affection. Their intentions made the decision first, and they followed suit. In the confrontation between the Valkyrie and Duan Yun, she must have sensed that Duan Yun is a very petty person. Even if he suffers some losses, he will come back for trouble, so facing such a difficult opponent, she made some arrangements. This bizarre pill furnace, this strange mist, must all be her arrangements. That mother pig mad woman actually deepened her home advantage. The Murong brothers wanted to destroy these pill furnaces, but Shen Ying stopped them, saying, wait a moment, because at this moment, her sharp eyes noticed that behind each pill furnace, there was a tree root connected. These tree roots looked thinner and newer compared to the surrounding roots, as if they had just grown. Duan Yun gestured for everyone to retreat, and they retreated nearly 100 steps, out of sight of the pill furnaces. At this moment, Duan Yun suddenly shot out a wave of jade sword finger sword energy. This sword energy pierced through the thick mist, accurately hitting a tree root connected to the pill furnace. The moment the tree root broke, there was a loud explosion, causing fragmented stones to fly and the mist to churn, forming a mushroom shape that shot upwards. Even though they utilized true chi to resist, the gusts were strong enough to sting their faces. Good heavens, it really was explosives. If in the previous confrontation, the Valkyrie sensed Duan Yun's pettiness, then Duan Yun also realized this Valkyrie is very sinister. Whether it's this ghostly array or hiding her formidable physical strength, both indicate she's good at concealing her cards and playing dirty. Sure enough, these pill furnaces were traps. If anyone had mindlessly destroyed them just now, they would have been blown sky high. Evil demon mother pig, truly insidious. With these pill furnaces destroyed, Duan Yun's figure floated over like a ghost. At the spot of the explosion, a black hole formed, emanating a scorched aura. Even the bizarre mist was dissipated quite a bit. Duan Yun swiftly found a tree root previously connected to the pill furnace, and poured a series of swift finger strength along it. He guessed that since the tree root could make the pill furnace explode, it must be relatively sensitive, so he activated his flirtatious finger strength. Sure enough, as the finger strength filled the tree root, it pulsated as if coming alive. In the next moment, he felt a sudden tremor from the giant tree. Almost simultaneously, a seductive gasp suddenly sounded. "The mother pig is over there." Duan Yun's figure flickered and darted over. He saw on the quivering trunk of the tree, the branches swaying wildly, leaves trembling and falling, revealing the tall and mighty figure of the Valkyrie. She emerged from golden leaves, as if unfurling golden wings. Almost at the same time, it seemed something was extracted from her body. This time, she was covered in flowing golden liquid, as if wearing golden armor. With a wave of her hand, a golden soft sword extended from her golden arm. The woman, over 2 meters tall, wielded a sword nearly 3 meters long. Clearly a soft sword, yet it exuded the oppressive feeling of a giant metal sword. Duan Yun watched it all, feeling that this Valkyrie was even more bizarre and mother pig-like than the last time they met. Because the flowing gold in her stood tall, without even wearing clothes this time. Truly shameless. The Murong brothers, upon seeing this, were extremely excited and shouted, "I'll go first!" With that, his hair of white and blue billowed as he charged forth. The Murong brothers had been brewing a few strands of wind frost sword intent for several days. Upon seeing the tall Valkyrie painted in gold, they couldn't hold it any longer, and it erupted forth. "Evil woman, prepare to meet your fate." As the Murong brothers' sword intent erupted, their blue-white hair parted in two and began to float. The Valkyrie's golden pupils showed no change. With a movement of her hand, the golden fluid on her body seemed to come alive, flowing around her arm as she swung a sword. With a bang, it exploded like a war drum being forcibly shattered. The cyan sword and golden sword collided, resembling two dragons, one golden, one cyan, tearing at each other. In the next moment, as the sword and saber clashed, the sword chi roared like a storm, producing sparks as brilliant as rain. Boom! The air waves rolled, sweeping up a sky full of fallen leaves as the Murong brothers and the Valkyrie separated from each other. The Murong brothers knelt on one knee holding their sword, exhibiting the serene demeanor of a sage. But in the next instant, their faces showed a shade of dark gold, full of gravity and despair. In the eyes of Duan Yun and the others, his whole body seemed painted in a layer of gold or as if possessed by a dark golden evil spirit, looking desperate and in pain. Ning Qing rushed over first. "Don't touch." As soon as Duan Yun spoke, Ning Qing had already reached the Murong brothers' shoulder, and as a result, she, too, was absorbed into the despairing golden hue. In Duan Yun's perception, the Valkyrie's despairing sword chi had risen to another level. The Valkyrie shook her hand, her chest heaving, letting out a disdainful snicker. The Valkyrie grew stronger when encountering powerful opponents. She didn't gain much from Duan Yun earlier, which, far from dampening her boldness, made her stronger. Just when she was about to launch a deadly attack, her body suddenly trembled, her jet-black hair sprouting white, and even the gold paint on her body started swirling, especially her lower abdomen, which transformed, forming a gold and silver intertwined conical pattern. This pattern had a pointed tip, resembling the Murong brothers' thinned-out head or like a glaring eye. When the Valkyrie looked down, she couldn't help but squint. That gold-silver pattern was dazzlingly bright. Ah! The Valkyrie felt an immense humiliation and tried to rub it off with her hand, but couldn't remove the gold-silver pattern, letting out an angry shriek. Yet, in that shriek, there was also deep sorrow, so much so that it almost made her want to shed Valkyrie's tears. After that, she no longer underestimated the Murong brothers, feeling as if they were rare silver demons in the world, and quickly slashed with her sword. In an instant, the golden soft sword twined like a snake, while the dark golden killing aura was as straight as a cliff. This sword was both soft in its straightness and straight in its softness, bewildering to behold, and entirely impossible to guard against. Even at his peak, the Murong brothers would struggle against the sword, likely having to rely on the 12 layers of spring rain and a night listening to spring rain to withstand it. But now he remained constrained by the dark golden killing aura, rendering him unsure of how to respond. Thus, without hesitation, the Murong brothers unleashed their ultimate move. Duan, assist me. As soon as his voice sounded, Duan Yun's figure appeared before him. In his left hand, he held the gentle knife, in his right the blood shadow sword, both wielded simultaneously. The gentle knife whipped up sword chi like spring rain, while the blood shadow sword carried a straight breaking body sword chi column. The sword chi rotated, bringing a soft strength like spring rain. The breaking body sword chi column was incredibly firm. It was one soft, one hard, a perfect union of toughness and flexibility. As the two forces of hardness and softness collided, the hard parts stood like rocky bulwarks, sparking in all directions, while the soft parts entwined like lovers, entangled in an unending dance. Boom! Ripples formed in the air like waves, separating both sides. Even as Duan Yun was still retreating, the golden liquid around the Valkyrie's body flowed, shaping into forms of golden leaves, almost as if she wore a golden robe. Just then, a red line on her body suddenly pulled, halting her retreat swiftly, and once more she surged towards Duan Yun. At that moment, the Murong brothers had already leapt from behind Duan Yun, shouting, "Don't underestimate me, green saber young hero." He said this while slashing the green moon saber in midair. Instantly, the sword chi rolled, forming an arc of 4 lengths long. The sword chi wasn't exactly green, but rather with a hint of pink, like the blooming peach blossoms of spring, and with a moistness like silk rain. A night listening to spring rain. With a boom, the sword and saber collided. The Murong brothers' strength was insufficient against the Valkyrie, launching them backward into the roots of a tree. The Valkyrie twisted her body, landing back upon the tree trunk. The next moment, her expression changed dramatically, continuously rubbing the gold-silver pattern, because the Murong brothers' slash reminded her of her very first time. Back then, her family had perished, and she, wounded, was being hunted by an enemy. The enemy was notorious for his pettiness, unlikely to stop until the roots were exterminated. Lost in despair, she stumbled upon this very tree, this enormous and miraculous tree. Exhausted, she quickly leaned against the tree roots and fell asleep. She had been hunted for 2 months by then, rarely having a proper rest. Even asleep, she'd soon be startled awake by the slightest sound like the wind through the grasses, akin to a startled bird. But that day, she slept deeply and sweetly, experiencing an unprecedented sense of safety. It felt as if this tree became a sanctuary for her battered body, shielding her. She even had a dream, a spring dream. In her dream, she saw a lush tree radiating golden light, indescribably warm, with a hollow in the trunk. As soon as she saw the hole, she felt very warm and comfortable, so she couldn't help but want to get closer. Then, something from the tree hollow merged with her, making her feel extreme comfort. Later, when she woke from the dream, she suddenly realized with a blushing face that the tree was really emitting a golden glow, beautiful like the afterglow of the setting sun. And there was indeed a hole on the trunk, exactly the same as in her dream. So she leaned over, unexpectedly reenacting the scene from the dream. After the first time, there was a second time. She found herself falling in love with this tree, or perhaps with the person in the tree. Even though they didn't speak, they were deeply intertwined. The tree and the person completely changed her, and from then on, there was one less stray dog being hunted down in the martial world and one more Valkyrie who made people tremble with fear. Later, she became entangled with the tree and conceived and gave birth to many children. Yes, from beginning to end, she loved only him. Every time it was him. After being affected by this blade, she couldn't help but recall these things. To others, it seemed bizarre and eerie, but to her, it was a pure and romantic past. The next moment, the Valkyrie couldn't help but let out a scream and fiercely rub the gold and silver pattern below her navel. The pointed end of the gold and silver pattern looked just like the head of that evil demon with a knife. Having such a pattern on her body symbolized her unfaithfulness, a stain and destruction of that pure beauty, so she couldn't help but want to erase it. But in the process of erasing it, she not only found the gold and silver pattern hard to remove, but even her body hair changed shape and color, becoming as pointed as the head of that evil demon with a saber. This feeling of trying to clean but getting dirtier made her extremely pained. So the Valkyrie let out a sharp scream, and golden sword chi swirled around her body, shaving off the body hair. Faced with the gold and silver pattern on her lower abdomen, she raised her hand and cut away that piece of flesh. When the golden blood spurted out, she finally felt a little cleaner. Almost at the same time, Duan Yun had already made his move. The fierce jade sword finger sword energy, accompanied by flirtatious finger strength, attacked directly at her lower abdomen, precisely at the newly split wound. The Valkyrie, who usually liked to play dirty, was even more furious facing such a sinister sneak attack by old demon Duan. She didn't dodge at all, and the golden blood at the wound spun like a whirlpool. Golden martial god life wheel. With a bang, the sword chi finger plunged into the Valkyrie's wound, and she suddenly clamped her legs tightly, barely controlling herself from leaking. Not only did she not leak, but she also held her breath, and the blood at her wound spun even more violently. With a swish, a golden arrow shot out from the whirlpool at the wound, fast as lightning. Duan Yun quickly raised his saber to block it. With a clang, the blade trembled violently. Duan Yun's feet dug into the ground, sliding backward, carving 2 grooves on the ground. In the middle, Duan Yun suddenly waved his hand, and a stream of chi force shot out from his fingertips. This chi force contained his flirtatious, quivering intent, directly targeting his bladder. The Valkyrie actually rebounded all his finger sword energy back, even with greater force. Duan Yun didn't pause for a moment, his boots screeching on the ground, counterattacking. Because at the same time, Fenglinger and Shining had already made their move. They attacked from behind the Valkyrie, one with roaring fist wind, the other with a sword like a red flower. They struck quickly and timed it perfectly within the gap when the Valkyrie's old strength had just ceased, and new strength had yet to arise, hitting a very tricky spot. Although the 2 women often quarreled, their quarrels had forged sufficient tacit understanding. One on the left and the other on the right, almost completely sealing off the Valkyrie's escape routes. Swish, pop, hit. The 2 women's eyes focused, determined to carry out the pincer attack to the end. But in the next moment, whether it was Fenglinger's red-faced sword or Xin Ying's fist, it seemed to be stuck in a quagmire. Visibly, the golden liquid on the Valkyrie's body turned into leaf shapes, trapping the sword and fist. 1,000 leaves. Inversion. With a rustle, those golden leaves flowed, resembling dragon scales, with an orderly beauty. Fenglinger and Shening only felt like they entered a spinning space, and their bodies suddenly lost control. The 2 only felt their vision blur, and then a thud. 2 graceful figures collided fiercely, chest to chest, leg to leg, muscles rippling with shock waves. Fortunately, neither was severely injured in the collision, not only because both had ample chests to cushion the impact, but also due to a layer of silk that appeared between them at the moment of impact. The entwined 9-death silkworm silk dissipated most of the collision force, preventing them from crashing into bone and flesh. In the next instant, Xin Ying's 9-death silkworm silk shot outward, embedding into the trunk of a golden tree, and pulled, intending to take the 2 away from here. For it was very clear to both that this space was strange. Duan Yun's body floated beneath the Valkyrie, his robes torn by an unknown force, about to be inverted. He immediately realized, it's a magnetic field similar to his electromagnetic sword field. Seeing Shening trying to take Fenglinger away, the air around the Valkyrie swirled again, forming the shape of leaves. She extended her hands, reaching towards the 2 like grabbing chickens. She wanted to eliminate these 2 women within her 1,000 leaves inversion. But at this moment, a sudden was heard, and the Valkyrie's body trembled violently. A series of flying black needles stabbed into her, causing a strange itching sensation. In the Valkyrie's magnetic field, Duan-Yun was restricted, so at the crucial moment, he employed the immortal crane flying needle. The immortal crane flying needle was thin enough and fast enough to penetrate this magnetic field and enter the Valkyrie's body. Valkyrie couldn't help but scratch twice, hurriedly circulating her inner energy to expel these things. Mainly because if she didn't expel them, the itch was unbearable, and there was also an impure feeling. How could there be another man's hair in her pure body? It could only be said that the green blade demon's pure sword intent was still affecting her. It must be said, young hero Duan's sacrifice was not small. Even his beard was entirely cast out. Yes, within the Valkyrie's body now, not only were there hairs from him, but also a beard and a strand of hair. As the Valkyrie was troubled by these hairs, Shining had already flown out with Feng Linger. It must be said, Feng Linger was also a cunning person, and in the moment of departure, she did not forget to strike. With a swoosh, the insidious red-faced sword slashed a sword mark across the Valkyrie's towering chest. As blood splattered, the flowing golden liquid had already covered the wound, preventing leakage. Seeing the Valkyrie struck, Duan-Yun's figure swayed and he was already behind the Valkyrie. However, the Valkyrie had already sensed danger, and her surrounding thousand leaves inversion field instantly converged behind her, intending to invert Duan-Yun. But how could Duan-Yun let her have her way? You have a magnetic field, but do I not? Electromagnetic sword field. Spin for me. Previously, when dealing with the Valkyrie, Duan-Yun had already expended a large amount of Spring Thunder power, intending to save some because the Spring Thunder had many uses, not only forming an electric field but also treating illnesses with electric therapy. But at this moment, feeling the Valkyrie's magnetic field, how could he hold back? In the same domain, how can this young hero be below a woman? The electromagnetic sword field spread out without any reservation, maybe due to the excitement of battle, and it was even more vigorous than usual. The two fields collided instantly, with Duan-Yun's electromagnetic sword field being more agile. It found a relatively weak spot in the Valkyrie's magnetic field and unhesitatingly and violently drilled in, wantonly exerting its power. Originally intending to invert Duan-Yun, the Valkyrie was affected and her body was instantly overturned. She hurriedly exerted force to adjust her posture, but in a split second, lightning like tentacles bound her hands and feet. It could only be said that the Valkyrie, still trying to expel the hair while resisting the electromagnetic sword field, was overwhelmed. In other words, with her usual cunning and expertise in combat, she should have weighed the pros and cons long ago, escaping the sword field first before planning anything else. But Brother Morong's sword intent had influenced her. She now wanted to cleanse herself first, so she did not give up expelling the hair. This hesitation made her passive. Duan-Yun was originally positioned above and behind the Valkyrie, so he suddenly changed from facing the back of her head to facing her groin. Whether it's the head or the groin, die for me. Ziz. Duan-Yun extended his right hand, converging the Spring Thunder in the sword field into his palm, emitting a sound like 1,000 birds chirping. In the next instant, the thunder in his palm sizzled, transforming into 1,000 thunderbirds, attacking the inverted Valkyrie's groin. Mad woman, take this attack. Above the heavenly pit, on the gray-white roof tiles, Lung Yishue and Lung Yiming lay with their hips raised, holding their usual far-sighted glasses. Just now, in the mystical fog, even with their extremely keen sense of smell, they lost track of Duan-Yun and his group temporarily. But suddenly, the weather changed dramatically, and a terrifying explosive sound erupted in the distance. As the dense fog was shattered, they identified the direction. So, the two sisters quickly used their movement technique to rush over and found this excellent observation point. The moment Duan-Yun's figure appeared in their far-sighted glasses, Lung Yimeng, lying there, tensed her legs. After such a long time, she finally saw him again. He was still so handsome, with a devilish charm, slender and strong fingers that made her face flush and her heart race. Then, the sisters' gaze was swiftly drawn to the attacking Morong brothers. They watched as the Murong brothers left gold and silver patterns on the Valkyrie, and their sword chi tainted the Valkyrie, sending chills down their spines. Everyone knew that there was such a green blade demon beside Duan Yun, and they were even more aware of it. But who would have thought that the green blade demon would advance further, becoming the green blade silver demon? And even the legendary Valkyrie couldn't escape his demonic blade, leaving a mark. As goddess catchers, Lang Yiming and Lang Yixue naturally had the bloodline of bloodthirsty audience members. Previously, while investigating cases, they maintained an extremely high enthusiasm for cases, and loved the thrill of breaking through the fog to find the truth. But later, their interest in cases waned, all because Duan Yun's appearance raised their threshold. The danger of walking the boundary with the old demon, where one might be imprisoned in a dark basement at any moment due to the handsome old demon, made them feel incredibly stimulated. And later, they even, for the sake of the divine catcher's duty, risked themselves to approach old demon Duan, pushing the thrill to its peak. But after the peak, there was only dullness. They were never locked into a dark basement by Duan Yun, nor were they tortured by his extremely skilled fingers. On the contrary, they had a pretty good relationship. The two sisters narrowly escaped the clutches of old demon Duan. Yet although they didn't say it, they were very clear in their hearts that they felt a bit disappointed. This old demon didn't forcefully dominate and torture them, nor did he think of relying on his strong abilities to marry them, completely beyond their expectations. Lang Yiming even secretly complained. Facing pretty goddess catchers and doing nothing, what kind of old demon are you? None of those renowned heroes were so inactive. Nowadays, the word hero has nearly become a joke, although it was once quite popular. They learned through the archives that during the peak of nights, many heroes appeared righteous on the surface but were playing in the dark. There was once a renowned hero from Jiangnan, who appeared righteous and had high prestige, but later it was discovered that he was like a beast in human skin, imprisoning 108 women in his cellar, from a 90-year-old grandmother to a few-year-old child, including black women who traveled the sea, all held for his pleasure. Yet old demon Duan showed them a sense of integrity that matched his outward heroism. When he was a demon, he was truly demonic, but when he was a hero, he was like the legendary heroic spirit first hero. At this moment, Lang Yiming and Lang Yixue had no time to feel excited and stimulated at the sight of Duan Yun, as their eyes were overwhelmed. The legendary Golden Temple inside the Golden Mountain, the Golden Tree in the Golden Temple, and the Valkyries wandering around the tree, any of these news could stir a huge wave in the martial world. Because these are secrets that martial world people care about the most. And now, they were watching the demon they had seen since childhood colliding with these martial arts secrets. In the far-sighted glasses, the battle between Duan Yun and the Valkyrie had reached a fever pitch, causing the two sisters to raise their hips even higher. The sound of the thousand bird was loud and clear, and the dark electric light followed Duan Yun's right hand, aiming towards the Valkyrie's seemingly vulnerable crotch as she hung upside down. If this move succeeds, that will ensure the real advantage is mine. Duan Yun struck fast and fiercely, determined to blow over the Valkyrie with the momentum of the thousand bird. The Murong brothers coughed as they crawled out from the tree roots, seeing Duan Yun wielding the thousand bird thunder, launching a sinister and impressive assault on the Valkyrie. They couldn't help but shout, "True strength!" Meanwhile, Fenglinger, Shening, Ningqing, and further away, Lang Yixue and her two sisters also felt the strength. Seeing this scene, they couldn't help but tighten their legs. Perhaps it was the shared empathy as women, as if it wasn't the Valkyrie being struck by Duan Yun but themselves. The jumping electric light had already turned the golden lower half of the Valkyrie blue. This appeared to be a guaranteed hit. But then a loud slap was heard, and Duan Yun's fiercely charging body came to a halt, along with the thousand bird lightning he held, stopping. Because at that moment, the Valkyrie's long and powerful legs abruptly clamped like a pair of pliers, capturing Duan Yun. All the women present prided themselves on having leg strength far surpassing the ordinary, but when faced with Duan Yun's strike, they doubted their clamping power would be of any use. But a Valkyrie is ultimately a Valkyrie. She trained her body to an unbelievable intensity. Her already fearfully long and well-rounded legs suddenly burst out with terrifying clamping strength, forcing Duan Yun to temporarily abandon his attack to defend himself. For it was so swift and fierce that Duan Yun, caught in between, had the illusion of two mountains merging towards him. If he didn't use his chi force to defend, the 1,000 birds could strike the Valkyrie's weak spot, and he might very well be crushed to pieces. The ghostly blue lightning crackled ferociously, striking the Valkyrie's thigh. The golden veins on the flesh were shattered. Her skin and flesh were scorched black, yet it still couldn't stop the Valkyrie's fierce strength. The Valkyrie gritted her teeth, forcing out an "ah," and at the same time unleashed the immortal crane divine needle within her, her legs forming a constricting kill. With a slap, Duan Yun's mind and body were twisted. Nevertheless, his body was surrounded by demon electricity and enveloped with breaking body sword energy, looking like a thunderous porcupine defending against the Valkyrie's constriction. With a boom, the moment he landed, he smashed a smoking deep pit into the ground. And after the Valkyrie's legs pincer attack, she sank directly, giving Duan Yun no time to breathe, launching a fierce knee strike. The exchange moved quickly from the initial chi force to magnetic field contest, and now to hand-to-hand combat, as if no time had passed at all. The last encounter had left Duan Yun at a disadvantage against the Valkyrie's physical strength. So this time, he held nothing back. The breaking body sword energy, imbued with the power of thunder and lightning, surged out crazily towards the Valkyrie. From a distance, the force from the Valkyrie's knee seemed to form a shield, while the black breaking body sword energy emerging from Duan Yun looked like a spear. It was a contest of shield versus spear. With a thud, Duan Yun and the shattered stones and leaves beneath his feet floated up. Only he knew that this spear-like attack was actually more about defense, defending against the Valkyrie's terrifying knee strike. The Valkyrie's greatest strength wasn't her strange or domineering swordsmanship, but her physical body. Her body, like her height, inherently exudes a fearsome suppressive force. Duan Yun, armed with breaking body sword energy, intertwined with demon electricity, and the fist power of the 16 strange fists, considered himself to have pushed his physical confrontation ability to a reasonably high level. Yet at this moment, facing the imposing Valkyrie, he felt as if he were a schoolboy facing a juggernaut charge. The breaking body sword energy shattered. The residual force from the knee strike was like fire, causing him to levitate. But the Valkyrie's assault wasn't over yet. Her golden metallic right arm swept like a golden blade, aiming to cleave Duan Yun in two. No, accompanying the strike were 6 new red wire corpses. They executed the same moves as the Valkyrie, like tigers gaining wings, determined to smash Duan Yun. But at that moment, 2 sword chi illuminated simultaneously, one bright as a mirror, the other blooming like a peach blossom, belonging to Ziyu and Feng Linger's swordsmanship. Along with them came the fist power adorned with white silk. Xun Ying's 9-death silkworm silk accurately grabbed 2 red wires, and with a twist, the originally seamless 7-star formation showed a slight disarray. 2 of the corpses were then trapped by the sword chi, and Duan Yun's right hand blasted forth. Heroic fire lotus bloomed, burning his sleeve while the fist power leapt like a dragon. Heroic fire ascending dragon dominance. This punch wasn't particularly intricate, nor did it have the complexity of connecting multiple fist techniques like the 16 strange fists. It simply unleashed the burning heroic fire with the utmost force. But precisely because of its simplicity, it was highly effective. The roaring fist power instantly transformed into a fire dragon, clashing with the Valkyrie's golden arm. With a boom, a wave of energy rolled out, raising a dark cloud. On the roof, Lung Yiming and Lung Yishua both shivered, nearly flying off, due to the tiles beneath them shattering to dust. Bang! Bang! 2 explosions nearly sounded at the same time. Duan Yun crashed to the ground. The earth beneath him upheaved, while his internal organs churned. The Valkyrie, in contrast, collided heavily with the golden tree, shaking loose countless fluttering golden leaves. Yet the tree seemed imbued with a strange resilience, not breaking or shattering from her hit, instead buoying her up as if living silt. The heroic fire lotus on her body had not yet extinguished, making her appear like a burning tall statue. With a wave of her hand, she shook off the flames, her golden eyes once again locking onto Duan Yun, preparing for another assault. Simultaneously, the 6 corpses leapt after her. Wings! Seeing this, Duan Yun declared, "You may have your formations, but I'm not lacking either." Hearing these words, Shin Ying and Feng Linger immediately moved to his shoulders, like a pair of intelligent wings. Youths and knights united closely in unison. However, Duan Yun felt it still wasn't enough, so he flicked his right hand and left leg, raising 2 kinds of suction forces. One suction force pulled Ziyu over, the other, like a dragon's tail, drew Ning Qing to him as well. "Lend me your true qi." Ziyu and Ning Qing were not used to it, so Duan Yun instructed them to lend their true qi. In an instant, the 4 wings on him fluttered, and the qi force rose like a whirlwind. Murong brothers crawled out from the ground, shouting, "What about us? We haven't joined in yet." "No time," Duan Yun said as the wings on him fluttered, already leaping up, because the Valkyrie was already descending with the 6 corpses. Murong brothers, unable to become wings, were so anxious they nearly wet themselves. At this moment, Duan Yun, with his wings, was already locked in combat with the Valkyrie. Yes, locked in combat. Duan Yun excelled at uniting swords with Feng Linger and was likewise adept at launching heavy punches with Shining, their coordination seamless as if one with his hands and feet. In the blink of an eye, the 2 sides had plunged into a fast-paced battle, exchanging hundreds of moves within a mere 30 breaths beneath the trees. This speed is not just about velocity. The fists and feet of both sides have long turned into a flurry of afterimages, accompanied by ear-piercing sonic booms, with more than just moves involved. From sword, saber, fist, and kick to fist, kick, saber, sword, finger strength, and palm force, they seamlessly transition, clearly displaying sword shadows in 1 second and then becoming punches and kicks in the next. At this point, both sides seem only able to rely on instinct to strike, essentially engaging in a grapple. Bang, bang, bang. The red lines pulled by the Valkyrie broke one by one, with corpses flying around, while the wings on Duan Yun were swept away by the chi force. The 2 quickly went from a mob fight involving others back to a one-on-one duel. In the air, Duan Yun and the Valkyrie, locked together, spun and wrestled, the vibrating chi force buzzing aggressively, making the eardrums ache. At a glance, the 2 seemed like ruffians fighting in a back alley, or like intimate lovers rolling on a bed. Their legs entwined tightly with hardly any gaps between them, because gaps meant flaws and opportunities for the enemy to attack. Duan Yun's body emitted breaking body sword energy, penetrating without any obstruction. The Valkyrie was enveloped in flowing golden leaves, impenetrable. With a loud explosion, the 2 crashed into the tree trunk, rolling further. The Murong brothers swung their sabers to assist, only to be repelled by the rolling force in an instant. The even more bizarre result was that Duan Yun and the Valkyrie, in their fierce rolling struggle, suddenly disappeared into the tree trunk. The Murong brothers leapt over, only to discover there was a hole. Duan Yun and the Valkyrie had fallen into a tree hollow. In the instant they fell into the tree hollow, everything turned pitch black. But in the blink of an eye, golden lines lit up. Duan Yun had no time to take a closer look, instantly trading over a dozen blows with the Valkyrie. After a brief separation, their legs clashed again. Compared to outside, the tree hollow was even narrower, a true meeting of narrow paths, fighting more fiercely. The Valkyrie's physical strength was formidable, while Duan Yun's techniques were more versatile, mastering sword, saber, fist, and kick alike. Screech. In the eyes of those watching, they saw the hole on the tree violently tremble and a copious amount of tree sap gush forth. This was caused by Duan Yun's overflowing flirtatious finger strength and Ming Chao impacting the tree. For a moment, Duan Yun only felt the world spinning. In this dimly golden-lined tree hollow, all he could sense was the Valkyrie's body, the increasingly frenzied collisions with the Valkyrie's body. His body's final defense was the breaking body sword energy, yet he felt his whole body stinging, as if the energy was bent. This tree clearly contained sap, making it difficult to breathe. The Valkyrie likely knew this, which allowed her to adapt more quickly, putting Duan-Yun at a disadvantage upon entering the hollow. But Duan-Yun continued to launch rapid counterattacks, using offense as defense to maintain his position. In a clash of experts, losing momentum meant severe disadvantage. Yet, Duan-Yun knew clearly that under such high-intensity strikes, he was gradually falling behind. By his estimation, in at most 100 more blows, he would be defeated. In terms of physicality, he truly couldn't compare to the opponent. In arm and leg length alone, he was at an innate disadvantage. Facing a woman over 2 meters tall, his height of 1.8 meters seemed short. After 50 moves, Duan-Yun's face showed a trace of bitterness. He felt he couldn't endure another 50 moves. But at this moment, the situation shifted as the Valkyrie's relentless attack frequency paused briefly. The pause was small, but noticeable in such a high-frequency battle. She needed to breathe. Though Duan-Yun was wrapped in tree sap, he could breathe through his skin, so he didn't need such obvious breathing pauses. Duan-Yun seized the opportunity to fiercely attack the Valkyrie's mouth, nose, and throat, preventing her from controlling her breathing. With this, the situation indeed changed. The Valkyrie hadn't anticipated that in this sap, Duan-Yun was a monster that didn't need to breathe. She had maintained the upper hand because she was familiar with the sap and had prepared an incredibly strong reserve of true qi. Relying on this qi, she suppressed her opponent, almost ensuring victory, but the opponent's endurance was excessively long. Long enough that her initial advantage wasn't capitalized. During her breathing time, she inadvertently gave her opponent an opening. How could you have a breathing reserve longer than mine? Duan-Yun gradually turned the tides and sought to firmly defeat this evil woman in the dark hollow. Yet, after a bout of turbulence, light suddenly filled his vision. The two emerged from the hollow. Freed from the sap, the Valkyrie found it much easier to gather her breath. At this moment, she suddenly kneed Duan-Yun away and raised her golden-armored right arm in defense. The Murong brothers were already waiting for her at the tree hollow's entrance. The Murong brothers recalled earlier being taken as wings by Duan-Yun, flying along with 4 girls, reaching an extreme peak of grievance and sadness. Yet this grievance and sadness were released at that instant, as the Murong brothers swung a saber. Just a few wisps of wind frost. With a swoosh, most of the sword light was deflected by the golden arm, sparking as some bypassed the arm, striking the Valkyrie's body. The Valkyrie's physical toughness was exceptional. This sword chi didn't reach her vital parts, though her hair started to whiten, and her previously injured abdomen again displayed sharp golden and silver markings. Again, in a moment of mental shock, the Valkyrie couldn't help but stick out her tongue. Yes, a few strands of wind frost not only left marks on a person, but also made them unable to resist sticking out their tongue in grief. The Valkyrie hadn't stuck out her tongue earlier because she was in a period of strength, easily suppressing this impulse. But after this long, exhausting battle, her energy and strength were unstable. Faced with this strange sword chi, she couldn't help but stick out her tongue. Duan-Yun instantly caught this, transforming his right hand into a sword finger, with a quivering intent, directly striking at the center of her tongue. Heart in the orifice is tongue. Duan-Yun's finger hit the Valkyrie's jade liquid acupoint on her tongue, and the terrifying and complex force instantly exploded. The Valkyrie shuddered violently, eyes rolling back, her body becoming weak. As she weakened, Duan-Yun's hands transformed into rapid shadows, fiercely striking 38 major acupoints on her body, with the Murong brothers joining in to reinforce 28 more. In Lang Yiming and Lang Ishua's eyes, the Valkyrie was forced by Duan-Yun and the Murong brothers to kneel on the ground, tongue out, eyes rolled back, tears and saliva flowing, in a pitiable state. The legendary Valkyrie was defeated. The invincible Valkyrie of legend was defeated. Could this be the significance of the double demon sabers of Yuzhu? Seeing this scene, Lang Yiming and Lang Ishue clenched not just their thighs but also their bottoms. Too terrifying indeed. The Valkyrie has been captured. The legendary and immortal Valkyrie lay prostrate before Duan Yun and the Murong brothers, rolling her eyes and sticking out her tongue, having lost all ability to move. Besides the Jade Pearl heroes, only Lang Yiming and Lang Yishue knew about this, and if it spread, who knows what kind of upheaval it would cause. Because the entire martial world in Qinghe City was in a frenzy over this Valkyrie. Many had even squandered all their youth for it, searching day after day for the martial god's treasure, turning from middle-aged men into old geezers. The Valkyrie and her golden temple were the dreams of these people in the martial world. Some spent their entire lives chasing it, unwilling to wake from the dream. And in less than 3 months, old Demon Duan had captured their dream, making her kneel before him. If this counts as extraordinary, then old Demon Duan and Green Blade Demon have outdone everyone. The Valkyrie has been captured, but the martial god's secret vault remains undisclosed. This Valkyrie's lifelong extraordinary skills, even with extraordinary wisdom, it required the combined effort of the Jade Pearl heroes to subdue her. Surely these skills couldn't have been obtained as easily as just sitting under this golden tree like a mother pig. Could they? If so, that would be too unscientific and unreasonable. Why should he have to laboriously train using extraordinary wisdom to achieve his martial prowess, while this Valkyrie could achieve it just by spreading her legs? Such unearned gains are shameful. Therefore, Duan Yun believed there must be a divine skill secret manual here. Otherwise, how could she, a woman, become so powerful? Is it just because she's big-breasted and long-legged? Everyone thought Duan Yun's analysis was reasonable and soon began searching around, trying to uncover any clues about the martial god's secret manual. But after a round of searching, the group found nothing. Suddenly, Duan Yun remembered something the village chief's second son had mentioned, that the Valkyrie and their family were meant to guard this golden ancient tree. So, their attention returned to the tree. This tree was astonishingly large, with flourishing branches and leaves, and an incredibly complex root system, making it difficult to locate a treasure trove related to the divine skill. Finding it would be like looking for a needle in a haystack, or rather, in a lake. The area this tree covered was comparable to a lake. Duan Yun tried to interrogate the Valkyrie, using many methods that caused her pain and discomfort, but she remained silent. He attempted to extract information from her by inducing shivers, but this time he did not succeed. The Beiming divine skill had miraculous effects on those who couldn't resist or were weaker than him, but the Valkyrie's power was not lesser than his. Her refusal was like a mental chastity lock, preventing him from achieving his aim no matter how he tried. This Valkyrie's loyalty to not betraying secrets was truly admirable. Duan Yun rarely encountered such a stubborn foe. At this moment, the Murong brothers stuck their heads into a tree hole, coming out with sap all over their heads. Feng Linger looked on disdainfully and said, "What are you doing?" "I think the divine skill secret manual might be in this hole," the Murong brothers replied. "It's just filled with disgusting tree sap, and why do you think that?" Feng Linger retorted, unconvinced. A man's intuition about holes. Feng Linger and Shining both looked at him with expressions as if he were a pervert. The Murong brothers, having a quick wit, hurriedly continued, "After passing through the fairy cave, we found the golden temple, so maybe this tree hole leads to the martial god's secret." Upon hearing this, Feng Linger and Shining found themselves unable to retort for a moment. Perhaps there was some truth to it. Just as the Murong brothers were about to stick their heads in to explore further, Duan Yun beat them to it, leaping in ahead of them. He also felt that the Murong brothers' argument was reasonable. Re-entering the tree hole, this time without the Valkyrie's interference, Duan Yun could study it more carefully. To be honest, this place gave off a suffocating sensation. Prior to this, when he faced off against the Valkyrie here, he barely managed to turn the tide with his own continuous energy, but the feeling of almost losing left a significant impression. The sap inside the tree was transparent. Given the enormity of the golden tree, the inside of the tree hole was also spacious, giving an illusion of an underground river. From here, one could see the internal textures of the tree through the sap. Veins of dark gold color crisscrossed, extending deep into the unknown. Suddenly, Duan Yun caught sight of two veins within the tree. These two veins had a faint light flowing within, resembling human blood vessels. This flow was inconspicuous and difficult to distinguish amidst the sap, but Duan Yun still noticed it. He followed these two veins downstream. It was quite far from the tree hole. The light that could penetrate from the entrance was nearly non-existent. Duan Yun swam there, somewhat unsure of the depth and time. The dark environment always gave the illusion that a mammoth beast was swimming around, and occasional debris in the sap always made one think it was the blood and flesh of some demonic creatures, sending chills down one's spine. Duan Yun always had the sense that if he continued swimming downwards, he might reach the netherworld. This inevitably reminded him of a mythical tree named Tauto, said to be planted near Ghost Gate, capable of connecting to the netherworld. Afterwards, the downstream path was no longer a straight drop. It started to twist and wind. The protruding tree walls were interlocked like canine teeth, with a twisted feeling, as if many monsters had opened their mouths to devour humans, making it quite perilous. This should be the root area now. Only by being inside can you truly understand how robust the roots are. One feels like a fish within. It can be said that the part of the tree hidden underground is far more vast and complex than its visible appearance, resembling a labyrinth of unknown depths. Duan Yun was once worried about getting lost in this space, and the only thing that could guide him were those faintly glowing pathways inside the tree. Just when Duan Yun was feeling a bit confused, he suddenly stopped. He seemed to see a person. Outside the golden tree, Fenglinger, Shining, Ningqing, Ziyu, the Murong siblings, and not far away, the goddess catcher sisters, were all staring at this tree hole. Because Duan Yun went inside. The Murong siblings were already analyzing. Why hasn't Mr. Duan come out yet? Could this really be the true fairy cave? And he is indulged in it, unable to extricate himself. With a whoosh, the entrance of the cave spewed out transparent and slightly sticky tree sap, splattering all over the inquisitive faces of the Murong siblings. The Murong siblings wiped their faces and were about to curse, but a hard object hit one of their noses, causing a stumble. While startled, the Murong sibling couldn't help but want to curse. But his mouth for cursing turned into an astonished O shape in an instant. This hard object was attached to a person. Duan Yun dragged a person out of the tree hole, or rather an oily corpse. This corpse had several vine-like pathways inserted in it, floating like long threads. Unlike the corpses controlled by the Valkyrie, this person had a greasy texture, as if covered in candle wax. Even stranger was his navel, from which a rod had grown, 3 feet long, and it was this that had hit the Murong sibling's nose. Upon seeing this thing, the Murong sibling couldn't help but say, "What the heck is this, growing from the navel?" Duan Yun pondered. It should be his nemesis. Upon hearing this, the Murong siblings' faces turned pale, saying, "Whose nemesis grows from their navel? And besides, this long, it's definitely not that thing. Impossible. Absolutely impossible." The Murong sibling adamantly refused to accept being hit by this old bird of the other party. Duan Yun replied, "He is the initial martial god, and those corpses below are his and the Valkyrie's children." Ziyu hurriedly took notes, even drawing a picture on the spot. A navel-growing bird strange person. A tree hole wet with tree sap. How much room for creativity this has in written form. Or rather, the surreal plot in her idle books could be a reality here. Following old demon Duan, indeed, never lacks material. At this moment, seeing this oily corpse, the restrained Valkyrie couldn't help but make a sound in her throat. Clearly, Duan Yun's guess was correct. The Murong sibling asked, "Then what about the Divine Skills secret manual?" Now, looking at this strange person, his eyes had changed. Or rather, the look in everyone's eyes had changed towards this strange person's corpse, except for Duan Yun. They became solemn and respectful, because this was the initial martial god. In their memories, their parents, and even their grandparents' childhood memories, the martial god appeared. He was the martial arts myth in countless people's hearts, the starting point that attracted numerous people to the Golden Mountain seeking dreams. This was like a big figure in the anime Duan Yun watched as a child coming to reality. But the next moment, the respected look in their eyes couldn't help but falter. Due to Duan Yun, this martial world novice, fiercely kicking the bird on the opponent's body, saying, "Right? Where's your manual?" The martial arts myth in others' hearts did not hold in Duan Yun's. Because he was a newcomer to the martial world, having debuted for just 2.5 years, he didn't know much about these figures and had no childhood filter added. Just like when he suffered a small loss at the hands of Ming Xing, the second palace master of Mingyu Palace, whom martial world bigwigs feared, he didn't think about avoiding the issue, but rather suppressing the person harshly to reclaim all that belonged to the young hero. The young hero may lose, but won't always lose. Just like stock trading, strong rebounds will occur. Double up. As Duan Yun kicked the initial martial god's bird, he suddenly noticed a detail, that the back skin of the opponent had a bulge. This bulged area disappeared quickly, but Duan Yun still saw it. Aiming at that direction, he used his palm force to absorb it, and a page of text appeared instantly. Is the manual inside? Everyone else also noticed this. Just as Duan Yun was about to cut open his skin to get the manual, there was a crisp popping sound, and the manual inside the skin collapsed and disintegrated. The corpse destroyed the manual itself. Or rather, he was still alive in some strange way with a certain level of consciousness. This golden tree probably has something to do with longevity. The fact the Valkyrie could live so long and still fight Duan Yun to exhaustion, and that this initial martial god was even older, retaining a certain level of divine sense and able to have children with the Valkyrie. When the manual inside the initial martial god's body exploded, the restrained Valkyrie's golden eyes showed fluctuations. Emotional expert Green Blade Demon captured this. Puzzled, "Are you feeling heartache?" The Valkyrie said nothing, looking elsewhere. But in the Murong siblings' view, this was evasion. The Valkyrie's tough mouth and body stance had already been verified by Duan Yun, so he couldn't help but set his gaze upon the initial martial god. The Murong sibling rolled up his sleeves and said to the Valkyrie, "Let's see if he truly loves you." With that, he was about to slap the Valkyrie, but hesitated due to the Valkyrie's identity. With a slap sound, Duan Yun once again acted before him, lashing the Valkyrie with his golden soft sword like a whip, causing her bound body to sway. Duan Yun looked at the initial martial god and said, "You wouldn't want your woman to continue being humiliated, would you?" Murong quickly chimed in, "Spit out the manual." The first-generation martial god remained motionless, as if a corpse. Duan Yun gave Murong a glance, ready to intensify the pressure on this pair. Murong looked at the first-generation martial god and said to Duan Yun, "What sword should we use?" "Try pure and single first," Duan Yun suggested. "All right." Murong had always been fearful of this first-generation martial god, even though he looked like a corpse. However, beside old demon Duan, his courage grew, and he raised his sword, striking a move named "A Night Listening to Spring Rain." The sword chi representing pure and single instantly penetrated the opponent's body, and Duan Yun picked up the golden snake's soft sword, lashing out at the Valkyrie again. This time, the first-generation martial god's body noticeably trembled. Murong saw this and said, "Let me do it." With that, he took the golden snake's soft sword from Duan Yun's hand and couldn't resist hooking the Valkyrie's chin with his hand, saying with a perverted look, "This young hero has many ways to use on her. I wonder how much her tall body can endure." Then he let out a burst of loud laughter. Ha ha ha! The laughter was particularly piercing. Even Duan Yun felt it was somewhat perverted. "If you don't spit it out, this young hero will have to act." Seeing Murong about to strike, the first-generation martial god suddenly opened his mouth and spat out a scroll of the manual. The manual was a bundle of bamboo slips, wrapped in tree sap, looking somewhat slippery. Unexpectedly, it really came out. The martial god's library was inside his body. Not enough. Murong saw this and again squeezed the Valkyrie's chin, threatening and enticing. At this moment, the first-generation martial god's face showed a pure expression, but he didn't spit out anything more. Duan Yun suddenly mounted the Valkyrie's neck, like riding a horse, thus increasing the intensity. I'm giving you one last chance. With a smack, the first-generation martial god spat out another scroll. This time, both the Valkyrie and the first-generation martial god shed tears. Tears of humiliation. Lung Ishua looked through his far-sighted glasses at this scene. Shocked. You said he was unlike old demon? More like a hero? Lung Yiming blushed slightly and said, when he acts like a hero, he's really a hero. But when he's a demon, he's more of a demon than old demon. Who else in the world could turn the legendary first-generation martial god and Valkyrie into such a state, except him? A little more. Morong gestured for Duan Yun to get down, wanting to ride the Valkyrie himself. But this time, perhaps disliking him for being uglier than Duan Yun, the Valkyrie refused. Her blood vessels around her eyes bulged, and she shed bloody tears. Golden Tree encounter. You and I are fated to meet. The first-generation martial god suddenly followed suit, carrying the martial god's library, flying side by side. Ours. All ours. Valkyrie and the first-generation martial god shouted in unison. Not good. Only hearing two explosions, the Valkyrie and the first-generation martial god, who had lived for hundreds of years, with their energy linked, their bodies surged and self-destructed together. The corpses floated everywhere. Duan Yun held a scroll rescued from the explosion, lamenting, so stingy. Indeed, had he not acted in time, even this scroll spat out might not have been saved. Morong was even more anxious, stomping his feet. I haven't rode yet. How come it's so chaste with me? Feng Linger and others looked at him in shock, the meaning obvious. Do you have no awareness of your image at all? Being ridden by a handsome man like Duan Yun, even a loyal woman might understand, but you riding, even a flirt might commit suicide. Duan Yun held the scroll that was nearly destroyed by the explosion, feeling apprehensive. Almost none were left. He glanced at it, only to see a crooked line of characters written on the bamboo slip. 7 points to the original energy. Desert by lake, pavilions and towers like the scenery of Jiangnan. The ruggedness of the desert and the scenery of the water towns merge together, forming a magical picture. This is Yellow Jade Island, arguably the most beautiful place in this vast desert. But ever since the lineage of the Jade Guanyin on the island was exterminated by old demon Duan, this previously mysterious island filled with the living dead has taken on a ghostly aura, clearly appearing as a gentle water town, now lifeless and dead. It's as if it's a tomb. The tale of old demon Duan wiping out the Jade Guanyin had been circulating outside for a while. But this extremely mysterious island had never been investigated by anyone. Firstly, because the Jade Guanyin was mysteriously formidable. Even if the new demon old demon Duan wanted to kill her on her own turf, it wouldn't be that easy, so in the eyes of many in the martial world, this could be false news. The Jade Guanyin was cunning and lascivious by nature. Releasing false information might be a trap to entrap, and those wise would just consider it for amusement. And there were some who despaired of life, willing to be killed by this world's most beautiful woman. But unfortunately, such frustrated people often lacked the capability and perished in the desert before even finding the entrance, let alone the complex and engulfing Devil City. But today, the water waves alongside Yellow Jade Island rippled, as 3 men and a woman entered. These 4 were known as the West Mountain 4 Rats, famous tomb robbers. Among them, the Red Rat, who was also the only woman, was reportedly a disciple of the leading rat phase of the 12 star signs. She ranked 3rd among the 4 rats, surrounded by the other 3 male rats, seemingly weaker, but she was actually the true leader of the 4 rats. West Mountain Rat and 4 rats all counted as her lovers. As for why Shu wasn't, it was because Shu was too ugly. She couldn't bring herself to. With a splash, the Red Rat emerged from the water. The Red Rat's fiery red hair was striking, and she was quite petite, appearing from a distance like a child. Yet you absolutely couldn't say she didn't have a good figure. She was short but well-proportioned, even giving the illusion of curves and long legs. A woman like this, dripping wet, would evoke a distinct allure. It's known that many men in this world like to conquer such seemingly small yet fierce women. Sadly, the 3 rats beside her had no such desires at the moment. because they had arrived at Yellow Jade Island. This island, rumored to be mysterious and extremely terrifying in the martial world. It could be said they were the first group to set foot on the island in a very long time, because not many have the courage, ambition, and strength combined. Even though they excelled in tomb raiding and trap disarming, the four rats still had to expend a lot of effort to get here. The weather was gloomy, and not a soul was seen on the island. Visibly, many buildings were already covered in sand and wind. This indicated that no one had cleaned here for some time. Could it be true that the lineage of the Jade Guanyin was exterminated by old demon Duan, leaving only an empty island? Initially, the four rats were careful and cautious, fearing that they might accidentally encounter the Jade Guanyin and her disciples and face utter destruction. Later, after exploring most of the island without seeing a single person and encountering traces of battle left behind, they gradually set their minds at ease. The entire island seemed almost demolished. Surely the Jade Guanyin met a formidable adversary, coupled with the uninhabited appearance of the island. This sufficiently proved that the rumor was true. The Jade Guanyin's lineage was dead. What remained was for the four rats to search for treasures. As one of the most mysteriously feared women in the martial world, seducing countless, her complete mastery skills were naturally exceptional. The people of the martial world yearned for nothing but the divine skill secret manual all their lives. Since the four rats braved such danger to come to the island, they naturally sought to find something valuable. With their abundant tomb raiding experience, the West Mountain four rats quickly pinpointed the location of the collapse and began digging skillfully. Given that they sought dragons and pinpointed tombs, and the trajectory of the Yellow Jade vein on Yellow Jade Island gathered energy and breath, the collapse happened to be the best feng shui spot. It could be said the martial world favors the brave. They eventually discovered the secret chamber of the Jade Guanyin on the second day. The Jade Guanyin's secret chamber, though already destroyed, might still have remnants. So behind that vermilion door, where the jade veins gathered over the rise, the West Mountain four rats began to dig again. Just as the shovel made an incision into the jade vein, the red rat suddenly glanced at a corner, nervously saying, "Who is it?" The secret chamber had been previously damaged by Duan Yun, with the floor still littered with burnt mineral residues. These distorted residues resembled ghastly arms, exuding an eerie atmosphere. Accustomed to such eerie sights from their long experience in tomb raiding, the West Mountain four rats, out of professional habit, lit a candle in the southwest corner of the secret chamber. The candle's flame wasn't bright. Initially, they noticed nothing unusual, but at this moment, the sharp-eyed red rat noticed. There was the silhouette of a woman in one corner of the chamber. Throughout their tomb raiding, the West Mountain four rats had encountered many bizarre incidents, already developing a certain courage. But this secret chamber of the Jade Guanyin turned out to be more frightening than any ghost tomb they had previously raided. Their hands subconsciously reached for their weapons. These were four greenish shovels, clearly laced with poison. This green ant poison not only makes rocks and soil easier to loosen up, but when it lands on a person, it quickly digs into the flesh and bones, causing unimaginable pain. For a moment, the four rats did not step forward. Red Rat twisted his head slightly, signaling the ugliest Air Shu to step up. Air Shu bore his buck teeth, looking reluctant. In the next instant, 3 poisonous shovels were pointed at him, the meaning clear. "We're all covering you. What are you afraid of?" Air Shu spat on the ground, wearing a worried expression as he approached the place. Then suddenly, the 4 rats shuddered together. From the dark corner of the secret chamber came the sound of a woman's crying. When the crying began, the flame of the candle in the southwest corner flickered. In such a scenario, the sudden crying of this thing made the 4 rats' hair stand on end. Air Shu wanted to retreat, but his brothers behind him had already pressed against him. "Lighting lamp," ordered Red Rat. With a swoosh, the 1st and 4th rats simultaneously threw their fire sticks. The strength of the 2 rats was impressive, the fire sticks turning into straight lines of fire, directly striking that silhouette. Whimper! The fire sticks hit that eerie silhouette, drawing out the whimpering of a woman. The firelight illuminated the woman's silhouette, causing the eyes of the 4 rats to fixate, including Red Rat. It was a woman with golden hair. Her body was entangled by jade veins, appearing to be bound. The key was that she was stunningly beautiful, indescribably so. Her delicate features, the expression that was filled with pain yet alluring, her lush pear-shaped body, all irresistibly captivating. Even Red Rat, who was quite a beauty herself, paled in comparison to this woman. "Help, help me," pleaded the golden-haired beauty. The 4 rats were like enemies at their gates, Red Rat's eyes flickering with flames of jealousy and fear. Perplexed, Jade Guanine. It was said that Jade Guanine was mysterious and beautiful, claiming to be the most beautiful woman on earth. This woman was clearly extraordinarily beautiful. I'm not," the golden-haired woman said pitifully. "Then who are you?" "I'm her daughter, imprisoned here by her," said the golden-haired woman with a face full of sorrow. "Where is she then?" Red Rat asked. "She was killed by 2 intruding villains," cried the golden-haired woman. "2. One very handsome, one with green hair. Old Demon Duan and Green Blade Demon," said the first rat in amazement. It seemed that the rumors had been confirmed that Old Demon Duan, along with Green Blade Demon, had indeed taken down Jade Guanine. The 4 rats seemed to believe her, especially Air Shu, who looked at her beauty as if wanting to rescue her. But in the next moment, a piercing whistling sound broke out, and the 4 rats simultaneously launched their shovels, attacking the golden-haired woman. The golden-haired woman's face showed a look of fear, her pear-shaped body twisting. With several explosive sounds, the poisoned shovels that were meant to strike her twisted into pretzels. The candles in the room flickered. The faces of the 4 rats from West Mountain showed expressions of fear. The golden-haired beauty had already freed herself from the control of the jade mines, gazing at them. "Run!" With a command from Red Rat, the 4 rats immediately leaped back, trying to escape through the thief tunnel outside the secret chamber. This woman's ample figure would surely not allow her to outspeed them in the tunnel. Yet the candles in the room flickered, revealing the golden-haired beauty passing through the 4 rats like a shadow. Red Rat's petite figure froze on the spot, trapped by a pair of legs. A pair of long, full thighs wrapped around her waist. And at her feet, there was only one person left breathing. In just a finger snap's time, therefore, her 2 lovers had been knocked down by this golden-haired woman, now lying on the ground with shattered heads, lifeless. The ugliest Air Shu was still alive, but not a single bone in his body remained intact, lying there like a pile of soft mud, only able to breathe. What kind of monster is this woman? Red Rat, being squeezed, had goosebumps all over. A few strands of the golden-haired beauty's smooth, beautiful hair fell on her neck, like a deadly Yama needle, filling her with extraordinary fear. Gasping heavily, she said, "I mistakenly trespassed here, offended the fairy, please spare me." "Oh!" The golden-haired woman's long thigh released her body, saying, "You may go. I never kill women." Red Rat hurriedly knelt in gratitude. "Thank you, fairy. Thank you for sparing my life." She trembled as she turned to leave. In the next instant, the legs that had just been removed from her torso returned to her waist, squeezing. With a ripping sound, it was like the sound of a sharp blade slicing through flesh. Red Rat saw her lower half standing in place while her upper half detached from it. With a thud, her upper half hit the ground, her pupils shrinking rapidly into 2 pitch-black points, her face filled with extreme fear. What great strength, so terrifyingly formidable! Afterwards, her vision began to blur. Red Rat knew she was about to die. Before dying, she vaguely heard several voices calling, "Big Sister! Big Sister! Big Sister!" Incredible strength! In the depths of the yellow jade vein, several gourd-shaped bodies swayed, making noises. To be precise, the first 2 meat gourds already had the rudimentary form of pear-shaped bodies, appearing like unfinished beautiful sculptures. They swayed, making noises towards the golden-haired beauty. "Big Sister, hurry and kill Old Demon. Avenge our mother." Indeed, big sister, you must avenge our mother. The two meat gourds swayed, their female features becoming more apparent, appearing beautiful as well. The golden-haired beauty smiled and said, "Rest assured, sisters, I've remembered the scent of the mother killers." Saying this, she left the jade mine and walked outside.